This story is about a typical loser who excelled at nothing other than video games. He always wished to touch some grass and be surrounded by all sorts of girls, but his ugly looks and empty pockets were a constant blow to his self-esteem. One day, he got an invitation from a girl he knew from his favorite game. He felt nervous and excited at the same time, because he wasn't sure if it was just a prank by a bunch of thugs from the other side of the screen. He eventually decided to go for it, but as soon as he stepped into the real world, his distant dream of a beautiful life was crushed by Truck Kun, who indiscriminately ran over it. But that's not even the saddest part of the story. As soon as he died, he was reincarnated as some random, ugly, low-level mushroom with the task of defeating the demon king of this era. Our story starts in the run-of-the-mill apartment that we've already seen in 100 manhwas before. The clicks of a mechanical keyboard meld with the ticking of the clock. Intense gaming shot calls filled the room of our cultured MC. The action he was engaged in was quite intense, and it sounded like it was entering the climax. As the intensity increased, so did the speed at which he controlled his character. With his APM reaching the limit of human capabilities, he pushed his guild to keep up. Everything culminated in a smoky explosion. It was a clear-cut knockout. The familiar victory screen lit up his monitor, and the after-raid lobby was beaming with celebration. The level 61 bandit gave all the credit for the first kill of the new boss to their raid leader. A level 56 beastmaster concurred, and the raid leader Frog was an actual hard carry. Meanwhile, the level 39 mage was just happy that she was brought along despite her low level. The man of the hour, Frog Hero, the level 75 berserker, humbly thanked everyone and invited them for another big raid next time. Reading their generous praises, Frog Hero could not help but feel like life would be better if he was this popular in real life too. Along in his cramped and crappy room, the reality of his situation still lingered. The sense of accomplishment he gets from being good at a game vanishes the moment he returns to reality. That's what Wazzy was feeling. Wazzy is also the name of a popular comic that he really liked. Just like the character, Wazzy is a real-life weakling and a coward. He's short, broke, and he's kind of stupid. Just another average loser college student. Sometimes he'd think that he could be the center of attention if grinding for levels in real life was possible. He would be the most hardcore solo power-leveling monster hunter if that were the case. Maybe that would also mean a ton of ladies lining up just to get his attention. He'd be able to enjoy their praises and touches. A perfect life for a lonely man. Alas, that version of him only exists in his imagination. He was pulled from a dream by a message notification in the middle of the night. It turned out to be the newbie mage, Little Fishball, the guild rookie. The raid's already over, so what could she possibly want from the raid leader? Wazzy was stunned to see that the message was an invitation to meet up. When reality set in, he smiled from ear to ear. Before getting his hopes up, he tried to think of what-ifs in this scenario. The worst case would be that the supposed dainty mage was a creepy old man who could break his legs on the other side of the screen. Wazzy eventually dismissed all that pessimistic what-ifs. Thinking about it, he does not have the money or the looks, so there's no need to worry about being catfished. You can't lose if you have nothing to lose. If he doesn't want to be alone forever, he'll need to take the scary step of showing up eventually. All it took was 2 texts, and he had a date in the city park on Saturday. For the first time in a long time, he finally scored a win in real life. His celebratory screams inside the apartment unfortunately woke up the neighbors. Days flew by fast, and Saturday had already arrived. Wazzy's weird Pikachu alarm clock sang its wake-up song. He shut it down and promptly stepped outside. The city park is filled with the beautiful red leaves from the trees this season. Wazzy's way too excited for his first date. He prepared a small bouquet of flowers, and he was about to enter the park early. For the first time in a while, he feels conscious about what his hair looks like. He felt iffy about the flowers, riffling through the bunch to make sure that they were perfect. Straightening his fancy red bow tie, Wazzy made a vow to become a new man from today forward. The feeling of life opening in his grasp made Wazzy shiver with delight. He felt something indescribably, a nervousness cloaked with excitement. The closer he gets to the promised place, the faster his heart beats. It's reminiscent of how it felt to be bullied in school. He wanted to run, and he wanted to be brave too. It's a bizarrely intense feeling. Wazzy could feel the sun shining and the flowers blooming when he imagined the beauty of dating. With the way he is now, he's just glad that he's getting out of his comfort zone. These romantic fantasies are just a bonus. Unfortunately for him, his first step as a changed man was a step into the pedestrian lane when the light indicated a stop. He steeled his resolve for rejection and reciprocation, excited to be a different person. The other pedestrians tried stopping him, but he was too distracted. Isekai Truck Kun screeched its way into the picture. It must have wanted to add Wazzy to its many victims. The brakes did not work, and the horns weren't heard. This unfortunate incident led to the death of a man who was just about to get started in a new and exciting direction in his life. His body slid across the concrete road, painting the ground with blood. The truck driver tried to check on his miserable state, but Wazzy was unresponsive. The people around clamored around the young man, some panicking, some calling for help. They watched as Wazzy slowly lost the last flickers of his life. There was a whole bunch of people freaking out around him, but he felt a serene quiet. It was complete silence, as if time itself had stopped. In an instant, the new love and new life that he dreamed about was gone. Other than being good at video games, Wazzy had no other accomplishments in life, and he regrets not experiencing the world more. The light of his life dimmed, and the tiredness took over. This is it. This is the end. It's pretty much inevitable. But then, a loading screen appeared inside his mind. Confused and scared, he asked what was happening, and a voice answered that it would be Wazzy's system from now on. He was hit by a truck and reincarnated into a new world. It sounds like a dream you'd have after watching too much anime, but it's not. No matter how Wazzy tried to wake himself up, he couldn't. The system explained that he just entered a new body that was hard to get accustomed to. Wazzy continued to complain and demand to be taken home, but the system angrily silenced him. Even if he was just trying to improve himself and his life still got cut short before it got better. The system assured him that he could go back to his original world if he could just finish all the missions that it had in store. He hurriedly accepted whatever mission it could be. He just wanted to get out, but the system warned him that the missions would take more than just a day or two, and that Wazzy should get used to his new body first. A new body without hands. Since a picture paints 1,000 words, the system invited Wazzy to look at himself at the pond's surface. He tried to walk, but his lower body jumped and bounced instead. Upon arriving at the water as clear as a mirror, Wazzy saw his new form for the first time ever. He got turned into a fucking mushroom. Wazzy bobbed up and down, freaking out at the fact that he had turned into a mushroom. Now, the creepy stares that he's been receiving are finally making sense. He heard the relentless chewing of their disturbing mouths and felt fear for his life. This was how the system formally welcomed him to the brave mainland. It claimed that it understood how tough this ridiculous situation was to accept. But the game has begun, and there is no turning back. He'll have to figure things out fast. Suddenly, Wazzy felt a shock that passed through his brain like lightning. His brain was filled with the history of a world filled with magic and wonders. The brave mainland. Long ago, monsters and humans lived together in harmony. The monsters and their muscular bodies assisted humans in all manners of physical tasks. Meanwhile, humans with a high affinity for magic would use their talents to help monsters survive and prosper. Back then, all species lived with their lives intertwined. Until one day, the demon lord, Gollum, broke the peace. He was the pinnacle of monsters. He hated humans who thought of themselves as superior. To defend against this attack, a golden age of guilds was started under the king's order to exterminate monsters. With the era come the legends of how 6 of the strongest braves teamed up to seal Demon Lord Gollum. They used their respective gifts, but Gollum was too powerful. The braves had to divide its immortal body into 6 pieces, hidden in 6 locations. Different parts were stored and hidden at the Castle of Time, Pentachrome Desert, Sunken World, Tempest Grasslands, Source Volcano, and the Land of the Dead. After Gollum was sealed, the brave mainland failed to establish peace with monsters and humans developing hatred against one another. Furthermore, Gollum's loyal followers continued to roam and terrorize the lands. They constantly wreaked havoc across the lands, looking for a way to unseal and revive the boss. Wazzy was warned that the revival of the Demon Lord would bring about the destruction of the mainland. His ultimate mission is to prevent that from happening. Lastly, since Gollum's followers are already on the move, he doesn't have much time left. The system just basically told him to stop the Demon Lord's descent, and he could go back to the original world. Upon confirmation, Wazzy ranted that the goal was way too unreasonable when they reincarnated him into a freaking mushroom. His tantrum-infused rant got him slipping and falling to the floor. The system advised him to take his time with the new body acclimation, which he'll need to do for the first mission. Wazzy could not even stand upright without taxing himself physically. He would have been fine if he became a goblin or skeleton. Maybe a slime or a spider is fine too. If he can't even get back up by himself, how can he beat a demon lord? Perhaps it's impossible to ever go back. But as the system repeated, the game would still go on, regardless of whether he played along or not. His first mission was to survive the designated amount of time for some tempting reward. A countdown started, and the snails began retreating to the foliage. After the count, the system gave him an hour to survive as they were coming. Confused and scared, Wazzy wondered just who in the world was coming. Looking at the stone portal, dozens upon dozens of young players started flooding into the woods. They're all excited to wipe monsters out. Feeling a dangerous sensation, Wazzy tried his best to bounce his mushroom body to a hiding spot. Since he's a monster now, these kids could see him as prey to hunt. One of the children had a twig for his weapon, batting down snails mercilessly. The boy was glad that he had brought his mother's stick to hang clothes. It's a pretty good weapon. Every snail he passed by would cower inside the shell. But the kids were brutal. They would use loose rocks to shatter the shell and kill the snail. No matter how hard you try to run, a snail just can't outrun a human. One of the kids looked like she wasn't there to shatter shells, but to find a best friend instead. She wants to be a beastmaster someday, but she needed to gather enough ingredients for her class change requirement first. She yanked that poor snail with enough force to rip bloodily. With one down in her storage pot, she only needs 9 more shells. Wazzy watched this madness back when he played games before. He never felt anything, but now that he can see a monster's perspective, the players look a lot scarier. Finally, one of the snails decided to retaliate against the players. One critical hit to the body zapped the boy's HP, and he was automatically teleported back to the beginner village with an EXP penalty and equipment lost. Unfortunately for the other kids, the level 3 snail daddy has arrived. He dreamed of being a biker daddy but rides around on a skateboard. Wazzy, hiding in the thick bushes, grew curious as to how he could see Snail Daddy's information and level. As it turns out, he had gained the ability to perform appraisals. Snail Daddy immediately garnered the attention of every player, as his shell is the rarest class change ingredient. The kids banded together to overwhelm Snail Daddy. The initial clash led to multiple eliminations. A lot of kids on the front line could not handle the heat. But thanks to those cannon fodder newbies, one player will get the last hit. The level 4 kid has waited so long for this moment, and Snail Daddy looks beat up and vulnerable. The boy ran in with his sword drawn, but ended up getting bitten on his foot, quite fiercely at that. Unfortunately, the boar skin boots were too tough to pierce. At least Snail Daddy has lost the skateboard, removing his speed advantage. Even without his vehicle, Snail Daddy did not back down. Wazzy could see that the old snail was refusing to back down against the odds for the sake of the other snails. He was so moved by the last stand he could not help but cheer Snail Daddy on. Unfortunately, without the skateboard, Snail Daddy was just another snail to be crushed. The crafty kid finally secured the most important ingredient for his class change. Tearing away Snail Daddies away from the shell, the kid celebrated. He got 20 EXP, a shell, and some meat. If he can take this back to town, he could finally become a knight. Seeing how hopeless the situation was, Wazzy just wanted someone, anyone, to get him out of this place. A few of the remaining players heard some unusual sound in the thicket and decided to check it out. Upon pushing the bushes to the side, they caught a glimpse of a scared little mushroom. Instead of trying to harm Wazzy, the kids seemed afraid of him instead. Fearful that his time was up, Wazzy was stunned that the kids ran in fear at the sight of a mushroom monster instead. The system suggested that he check out his attribute panel for clarity. Opening the panel, he was designated as a level 5 with a decent HP, MP, and SP pool. No wonder those newbies ran away. He's basically the strongest creature in this forest. He's theoretically stronger than the player who killed Snail Daddy. There's also an ability list that he wanted to look at so badly. As of now, he has Appraisal and Mushroom Bash at level 1. Appraisal is an incredibly convenient information gathering skill. But Mushroom Bash sounds like an attack skill that doesn't cost mana to cast. It might sound like a basic skill, but with his stats, it should be enough to dominate the starter village by force. He thought the system was forcing him to play Hell Mode as a powerless mushroom, but he could actually play on easy mode while hunting newbies. Feeling confident with his stats, Wazzy sets his sights on the players tormenting the snails. Stealing his resolve, he rushed in to show the kids his power. The first Mushroom Bash he cast landed for a 2-for-1 deal, knocking out 2 of the little bastards. With every newbie, kill came 5 EXP. Noticing that some of their buddies were falling mysteriously, the other players finally saw the ruthless mushroom monster. One of the kids nearly pissed his pants in fear. He immediately jumped to a vine, climbing as fast as possible like Tarzan. The monster wave shouldn't be rampaging yet, and there shouldn't be any high-level monsters in the field. With an evil snicker, Wazzy jumped with impressive force, attempting to catch up to the player who retreated. But his overconfidence made him careless. He bumped his head against a tree branch. He tried to hold on, but it was too hard. Times like these make him miss having hands. He had no choice but to spare the cowardly player and hunt the other newbies. While he was traversing the lands, trying to find the next prey, a tiny pebble was tossed to his head. He took 2 points of damage, but it still stung. Turning around to see who would be impudent enough to draw his attention, he saw a whole party of level 2 and 4 players formed up. The kid that retreated using the vine called his friends over to hunt the mushroom. Keeping his level advantage over them in mind, Wazzy initiated his spin attack. After warming up enough, he showed them that he was not just any ordinary mob with the fastest and strongest mushroom bash he could muster. Unfortunately, his all-out attack was met with a round wooden shield. It neutralized the damage, but messed up the formation. Glasses called the shots, splitting everyone up from left to right strategically. Iron Helmet continued launching his manual stone barrage, one of which had hit for a critical strike, doubling the damage dealt. It hurt so much that it pushed Wazzy into a rage. To make matters worse, the other kids also took up stones for more annoying ranged attacks. The mushroom monster had no countermeasure against such a humiliating bombardment. Those 2 HP damage points add up once the volume increases enough. This was unsustainable. His movement isn't as nimble and free as a human, so facing a team attack is borderline impossible. At least the mushroom bash finally went off cooldown. He launched himself forward, aiming to close the gap and take some players down, but the party's tank had the perfect counter. Just like earlier, the tank player met Wazi's skill with a steel shield this time around. With the attack stopped, Glasses came in with his sword swinging. It's up to him to finally deal with the beast. Wazi panicked. He barely dodged the first sword swing. In fact, it grazed him, taking a little bit of mushroom flesh off. The wound might be small, but the pain was unbearable. The strength of weaklings grouping up was overpowering him. He had seen this situation plenty of times in the gaming world. This was the core principle of raids that he was so good at. Tanks draw aggro, while other members focus on dealing damage and utilities. They were practically whittling him down. With his only attack skill back on cooldown, Wazi was a sitting duck, being beaten up by a party of players. The little bits of damage finally added up enough to knock him unconscious. The party looked down at the high-level mushroom monster, a celebratory smile appearing on their faces. They were already looking forward to returning to the starter village with unexpected prey. There's just a little hiccup to their celebration. The experience points they were supposed to get had not arrived yet. Well, that's because Wazi was using the high-class tactic of playing dead. Now that he finally got the party gathered up unguarded, it's time for his revenge. It did not take him long to kill 4 enemies in succession. He gained enough EXP to level up. His body glowed with a mysterious light, basking the defeated party with radiance. Hitting level 6, his injuries healed, and Wazi felt as good as new. The healing feeling of a level up is a wonderful thing. Injuries and pain will disappear in the blink of an eye. Laughing with joy, he planned to hide and ambush more newbies to farm easy EXP. From there, he could leave the village after reaching the maximum level. It was a perfect plan, but it did not account for surprise lightning strikes. The sky is clear and sunny, so there's no way that it struck naturally. It turned out to be a spell cast by a mage of a 3-person team. Wazi only survived because the mage wasn't that good. Anyway, they formed a team for a mission to eliminate a monster that was causing problems for the starter village. They consisted of a level 18 mage, a level 17 archer, and a level 12 warrior. They just wanted to do the job and go. Meanwhile, Wazi was already feeling doomed at the massive level gap between him and the team. The overleveled and underskilled mage unleashed a minor magic bullet against the mushroom. Wazi tried to dodge, but the spell still grazed the top of his head. The magic bullet burned and gouged his mushroom head and inflicted severe damage. He was not expecting to meet high-level players in this starter village at all. Seeing the destruction one spell can do, the mushroom did what seemed to be his only remaining answer, the ultimate technique. Run like the wind. Using the full extent of his strength, Wazi Mushroom bashed out into the other direction. The players were shocked to see a low-level mob retreat smartly like this. The warrior, trying to prove that he could contribute to his seniors, offered to take care of the retreating mushroom. He just learned the new Earth Cleaver skill recently and wanted to test it out on Wazi. It cleaved the earth and spawned a solid earth wall at the end. The poor mushroom didn't have enough time to redirect himself, brutally crashing against the wall. This mishap finally brought his HP below 50%. Flipping against the wall, Wazi tried to regain his footing. But the archer had other plans for the magnificent monster. Unleashing the arrow, Wazi did not have the chance to defend. A single attack from the high-level archer claimed the remaining 23 HP he had, finally plummeting to 0. Wazi toppled over alongside the earth wall. It was finally game over. Even the system itself said so. His elastic body bounced around for some time before landing face down. The warrior praised his sister's archery worthy of being recruited by the Rangers Guild. The mage stopped their chattering and focused on collecting the mushroom's corpse for the reward back home. The system sighed at Wazi for being a disappointing expert gamer who died so quickly, reminding him that the mushroom still got one revival coin. He doesn't really have a choice. He needs to revive himself. Using the coin, life returned to his body, and he learned a new ability called Spore Explosion. Back to full health, Wazi did not hesitate to use his newly acquired skill, filling the air with spores. The blast obscured his movement, catching the players off guard. In their time as players, they have never seen a low-level mushroom with this bizarre ability. Once the surroundings practically had zero visibility, Wazi Mushroom bashed up and away. Unfortunately, the archer's eyesight was too sharp, spotting him trying to flee again. The team immediately assumed their positions, getting ready to chase. Wazi's life was on the line, and that was enough motivation to act swiftly and push his mushroom body to the limits. When I asked the system how much time he had left, it replied with just about more than 3 minutes. Those limbs and hardened ability reward would significantly increase his chances of surviving. But it's useless to think about rewards when the players are already catching up. He blocked their vision with a spore explosion before escaping, but they still caught up without any problems. The problem lies in the mark above his head. It turned out that the ugly archer infused her arrows with prey-tracking magic. Wazi might have survived the prior attack, but he's just a slow-moving target for the players. Mr. Warrior pounced with power, and Wazi dodged to the best of his abilities. After using his only revival coin, dying now would mean dying for real. Speaking of death, the warrior unleashed 2 wind blades that could tear up trees. Grazing his body led to an 18-point damage. It was mortifying, but Wazi refused to go like this. He covered the area with another spore explosion. The archer just smiled, thinking that the stupid monster was just doing useless things. Once marked, she could hit any target, even with her eyes closed. Just like she claimed, her arrow traversed the woods in a straight line without losing momentum, piercing Wazi's body. This attack shaved away more than half his HP again. Now that he's in a critical state, his speed and SP consumption have dropped, and his auto-recovery has stopped. With the prey lying helpless on the ground, the players slowly made their way forward. They had to admit that this mushroom monster was a little special. It was too clever, but in the end, it will still fall against the mage's minor magic missile. Much to everyone's surprise, something big was about to happen. The players looked up to the skies and saw something odd. A massive teleportation magic circle appeared out of thin air as soon as Wazi's survival mission countdown hit 0. As a veteran, the mage already knew what was about to happen and yelled for his team to run. From the teleportation circle came more mushroom monsters, popping up one by one. Mushrooms fill the sky and the monster wave finally arrives. They descended to the ground like a group of cuddly killers. The inexperienced warrior smiled, thinking that his seniors were afraid of nothing. He charged in and quickly slaughtered a few mushroom monsters without contest. Each kill was just free experience points for him. Using the Tomahawk Cyclone, he dealt with multiple monsters at once. Dizzy and dead mushroom monsters littered the floor. With 25 EXP a pop, this was basically a free experience buffet that the warrior could exploit. His seniors have given up on the idiotic warrior for not retreating. Done with being berated by the seniors, the punk warrior screamed at them to run away like chickens. The mage just sighed, and the archer did not give a damn. Disbanding the party, the veterans ran away. The warrior cursed them for being cowardly idiots afraid to farm free and experience falling from the skies. Then the main event started that made the dumbass change his tone. This teleportation circle might not be as it seemed initially. A level 60 Mushroom King, leader of all mushroom monsters, has arrived for its weekly descent to the starter village. The warrior panicked, afraid of getting crushed by an endgame monster. But that's precisely what happened. The king's massive body must have crushed the swordsman's bones. From then on, the mushroom monsters were business as usual. At least the fool won't die and will be revived and returned to the starter village. With all the revival penalties, the experience the fool gained these past few days would be gone just like that. The Mushroom King was just way too powerful. Still, in a critical condition, Wazi wondered if this mushroom parade came to save him. Mushroom King took his blade out and ordered his troops to push forward. They leaped and bounced their way deeper into the woods. Wazi thought they were here to help him, but he was ignored and left to fend for himself. He wanted to scream that he was also a mushroom who needed help, but he had no energy left. Before passing out, an unfamiliar figure came into view. Will he die a miserable death, or will he get the help he so dearly needs? When he regained consciousness, Wazi weakly opened his eyes to a bonfire inside a cavern. He tried his best to sober up and assess the situation. It looks like he did not die, and he's in a foreign place. Around him were chewed-up mushroom monster corpses. A pig has been chomping on mushrooms with greed. Wazi naturally thought that the pig had killed every mushroom on the floor. It must have sensed that he was awake and turned around menacingly. Wazi instantly turned away, his teeth clattering with fear. The pig continued munching on its meal while Wazi was freaking the hell out. He thinks that the pig dragged him all the way here to become dinner. His plan was to run away while the beast was distracted. That's when he noticed the glaring weakness of his plan. Wazi's lower body had been decimated, making it impossible for him to run. The number one suspect was the pig. It must have eaten his lower half while he was unconscious. Unfortunately for him, the pig is coming over, and maybe playing dead would work once more. The beast was already upon him. Pretending to be dead or asleep was the only reasonable approach. It reached over with its mouth, making Wazi tremble uncontrollably. Instead of getting bitten, the pig mysteriously spat out mushroom pieces instead. The pig neatly placed the scraps in Wazi's lower body. Then, the recovery started happening point by point. It's bizarre, but the pig was actually using other mushroom scraps to help repair his body. The pig then stepped over to his face and started lovingly rubbing its snout on Wazi. The beast looked glad that the mushroom was recovering bit by bit. It eventually sat down beside Wazzy and went to sleep. After a few hours, daylight permeated the cavern, waking the pig up. It was shocking to see that the mushroom it nursed back to health was gone. Using its sharp sense of smell, the pig sniffed around for a whiff of Wazzy. The scent was coming from the exit of the cave. The pig diligently followed the trail and suddenly remembered something halfway through. Instead of following the scent, it ran back. It turned out that the smart piggy just forgot to extinguish the bonfire. Just a reminder to always extinguish the fire before leaving when camping outdoors. Meanwhile, Wazzy was doing his best to jump his way into freedom. If he's going to die, he'd rather die at the hands of a boss rather than be eaten by a pig. Feeling the ground tremble, he initially thought that there was an earthquake. But no, it was just the pig running like a maniac trying to catch him. No matter how hard he pleaded to be left alone, the pig remained unfazed. The fact of the matter is, Wazzy won't be able to outjump a running pig. At least he has other tools in his arsenal, like the spore explosion. This brown fog was enough to make the pig stop in its tracks. Instead of looking troubled, it looked happy instead. It flared its nostril for an expansion and promptly snorted every bit of spore with a piggy vacuum. In just a few seconds, the spores were cleared out. Piggy over here looked entranced after snorting the brown mist. Wazzy had never seen anything this freaky in his life. Continuing to run, the enamored pig continued to chase. Not knowing what to do anymore, the poor mushroom turned to his system for help. The survival mission from before should be completed, and there was supposed to be a reward to claim. Now would be the perfect time to immediately redeem his reward. He needs to choose between hardening and limbs. Harden is a good defensive skill, but limbs are much more versatile. He can use it to attack or to run away faster. At the moment, growing legs would be more valuable, and having a varied movement pattern on a chase would be huge. So, he finalized his choice and went with the limbs. A little stubbly arm appeared on either side of his body. Then, a little cute-sized leg followed. After being baptized by the system's power, his transformation was complete. Wazzy had gained his limbs back. Stomping his new legs on the ground, he balled his hand into a fist and ran as fast as his new body could possibly run, which was not fast at all. In fact, it was pathetic. These 4 tiny bumps he got from the reward aren't even worth being called limbs. He blamed the system for giving him false hope, only to leave him at the mercy of the pig once again. Miss Piggy jumped with glee. It grabbed Wazzy by his mushroom head, carrying him to a few acrobatic rolls. Once Piggy pumped the brakes, Wazzy was left dazed, reconsidering his life choices. The pig started licking him all over his plump body, and he could only beg to be finished off quickly instead of this torturous ritual. The licks continued, and Wazzy stopped fighting it. Then it occurred to him that he could use the appraisal skill of this beast. It turned out to be a level 10 ribbon pig with some decent stats. Then, he opened his own attribute panel to compare their numbers. The gap between him and Piggy was wide. He might not be able to escape its grasp. Speaking of Piggy, it finally stopped the licking and intently stared at the cave opening instead. Something suspicious was lurking outside. Piggy caught a whiff of what it was, and all colors drained from its face. Piggy started running around in circles, seemingly trying to warn Wazzy about something. He couldn't be bothered by the charades. He just wanted to leave. But when the ground shakes uncontrollably, it won't be long until he sees what Piggy is warning him about. He naturally thought that they were experiencing an earthquake. But the culprits were some beasts trying to dig through the cavern from above. They jumped and pounced with incredible strength. They made enough impact to knock rock formations from the ceiling loose. Piggy hurriedly ran away to the exit, leaving the mushroom behind. When Wazzy angrily asked for help, the pig had a change of heart. Miss Piggy slid through the rough floor, drifting and preparing to run back. It charged forward, braving against the falling sharp rock formations. Piggy was not only fast, but it was also adept at dodging debris without a hitch. Arriving near Wazzy, Miss Piggy poked him with her snout and launched him into the air. Surprisingly, he landed perfectly on her back, a successful beast mounting. He held on tight, scared of the pig's impressive running speed. The nimble dodges and the zigzagging pattern made Wazzy dizzy beyond belief. With only a little bit more distance until the exit, Piggy exploded with physicality as a single jump covered the remaining few meters. Just like that, they managed to steer clear of the collapsing cavern. Piggy turned around. If they hadn't got out in time, they would have been buried in the rubble. The creatures responsible for this blatant sabotage made their presence known. It was a gang of angry wild boars. Wazzy asked Piggy if those were her friends, but it sure did not look like it. Using appraisal, those wild boars have high levels. But none of them could compare to the wild boar chief with a flaming head. Based on Ribbon Pig's resentful eyes, it looks like there's some deep history here. That chieftain is no joke. It's a level 35 monster. Wazzy's appraisal skill was way too weak to dig up any other information aside from that. After exchanging some tense glances, Piggy turned around. One of the wild boars got angry and tried to stand in her way, but the chief snorted angrily, making the boar back down with a whimper. Wazzy has no clue what kind of messed up past this Ribbon Piggy has with these wild boars. He also doesn't understand why Piggy is helping him at all, but for now he just shrugs off any thoughts and rolls with the way things are going. Ribbon Pig was diligently sniffing left and right to find the best path through the grasslands. When asked for the precise location, the system replied that they were at Crescent Bay, east of the Tempest grasslands and 200 kilometers away from the starter village. In other words, they are far from where they started. It's because of that teleportation spell that Piggy must have passed through that magic circle. Sensing something amiss, Piggy increased its vigilance. A stretchy and slimy appendage jutted out of the grass and aimed to strike at Piggy and Wazzy. From left to right, Piggy dodged everything with finesse. This just proves that danger lurks all around the wilderness. They survived thanks to Piggy's superior senses, but dodging those easy attacks might have brought forth a bigger problem. The culprit showed itself. That appendage from earlier turned out to be a toad's tongue shaped like a fist. Seeing the giant toad, Wazzy activated appraisal immediately. It was a level 11 bull toad with an impressive stat spread. It has become a face-off between the duo and the hungry monster. Any sudden movement was met with vigilance. Bull Toad opened up the fight with another attempt to use its fisting tongue. Just like before, Piggy easily slid away masterfully. Unfortunately, Piggy wasn't used to having a passenger, and Wazzy was caught by the slimy tongue. Seeing the mushroom being held against his will angered Piggy to the high heavens. With speed never displayed before, she made a beeline towards the toad. Given the attention needed to keep Wazzy captive, the toad was left open for Piggy's retaliation. It tried to retract the tongue, seemingly aiming to chew the mushroom down. It has become a contest of speed against the tongue and the pig. Once near enough, Wazzy aimed to activate a spore explosion, but there might not be a need to do so as Piggy rammed against the toad with a barbarous charge. The pain made the toad release its grip. After a perfectly timed attack, Piggy proudly caught Wazzy on her back. Just like in that cavern, Piggy saved him again. Unfortunately, the treachery of the wilderness wasn't done yet. Piggy jumped, dodging a lethal windblade. Turning around, the duo saw the bull toad that gave them a tough time getting sliced and diced into pieces by an unknown entity. There is something else out there. Something stronger and fiercer. Something that had enough strength and sharpness to stab and snack on the toad's tough skin. A level 19 blade mantis, a real weapon of sharp destruction. Its HP and defense are trash, but its attack power and critical rate are way too scary. This insect beast finally noticed the duo's presence. Underestimating this mantis could very well lead to an untimely death. Behind those thoughtless eyes are nothing but thoughts of murder and consumption. Blade Mantis wound down and concealed its blade inside the scabbard. Piggy and Wazzy braced themselves for impact. A loud boom interrupted the battlefield as a nearby rock took to the skies mysteriously. It eventually dropped down on top of the mantis. The duo was stunned. Just like that, the threat to their lives had vanished, crushed under a boulder. But it was no ordinary boulder. If you look closely, it had a mushroom-like shape and a sculpted face. The dead blade mantis eventually got absorbed by the boulder bit by bit until nothing was left. It opened its stony eyes, revealing a pitch black and red glare akin to death itself. It must be trying to communicate, but it sounded gibberish. According to appraisal, this thing was a level 26 boulder mushroom. A typical evolution path that mushrooms take after absorbing stone essences. They are practically invincible and highly destructive at the same time. Wazzy warned Piggy to slow down and leave as quietly as possible. They retreated back to the tall grass, afraid of making the tiniest bit of sound. Once they were out of sight, the boulder mushroom retracted back into the ground as if nothing had happened. Just like we said earlier, the wilderness is full of strange dangers. The trek was exhausting, and Wazzy was about to run out of SP soon. Even the usually lively Piggy was having a tough time pushing forth. Finally running out of gas, the duo decided to lie down under some shade, hoping to recuperate a little bit. Piggy sat up, looking and admiring the view of the seemingly endless grassland around them. Wazzy was way too anxious about their safety to admire the view. But when he caught a glimpse of the magical landscape, he was awed. A land of greenery stretching far and wide, mountains and clouds painted harmony, and the flying giant beasts added majesty. This world may be supremely dangerous, but you can't deny its raw beauty. The system popped up, telling him that this world was similar to his old world in some ways. He would have died on multiple occasions if it wasn't for Piggy's help, but Wazzy won't admit defeat. He wants to grow stronger and survive. So, he called the system to ask for another mission to earn some rewards. It quickly gave him a choice between 3 difficulty levels: easy, medium, and hard. Thinking that fortune favors the bold, Wazzy took a peek at the hard mission. It was a task to defeat one of the 4 heavenly generals under the Tempest Grassland King. Seeing that he was a fool to pick that one, he backtracked and checked the easy mission first. This time, it was a lot simpler. He just needs to collect 10 red berry herbs to get 50 EXP. Reinvigorated by a new goal, he called Piggy to start the collection mission. He ran through the tall grass, diligently searching for the herbs. After a few minutes of scouring the land, he finally found some. He can already see a bunch more herbs nearby, so this mission should be considered a done deal. With 6 out of 10, he only needed 4 more. But collecting that much won't be that simple with Piggy in tow. The greedy pig snatched 2 of the herbs to snack on by herself, lowering the material total to 4. Seeing the stinky pig eat his mission objectives, Wazzy erupted in anger. Perhaps it's about time to show this beast who's the boss around here. He's going to do that through the strength of his fists. Using as much strength as possible, his punch-cute punch landed on the pig, but did not deal any sort of damage. His powerless strike didn't even deter Piggy from the ongoing herb feast. Wazzy slumped back, seemingly giving up. Piggy noticed him sulking to the side and turned around playfully. Thinking that the pig was about to retaliate for the weak punch, Wazzy panicked. The mushroom flew in the air, tossed away by Piggy's barbarous charge. As for the next mission, he needs to collect 30 fruits for 70 EXP and a special reward. He had to bash his mushroom head against trees a few times, but he managed. When it came to the fish-catching mission, Wazzy discovered that his spore explosion was an effective way of nuking a river and its inhabitants. As for the mission to collect 20 ores, his little stubby hands were quite useful in digging minerals up. By the end of the day, Wazzy got his final level-up notification, reaching level 9. He's been laboring all day. If Piggy hadn't made the food missions harder, he would have gained at least a few more levels. Even while sleeping, Piggy couldn't stop thinking about everything she ate that day. Seeing Piggy in a deep slumber, Wazzy reckons that he might not get another chance to complete an easy mission without interruption again. It turned out that the next mission was to simply absorb all the previously collected items for 200 EXP and an exclusive ability. Special reward missions tend to give something useful, and the instructions seem way too easy. He quickly dumped the materials out of the inventory box. Arranging them into a big pile, the sleeping Piggy was alerted by the strong scent. She woke up instantly while wiggling her tail intensely. Wazzy tried to drive Piggy away as it was his turn to feast now. But seeing her saddened look, Wazzy's heart could not bear to eat while Piggy watched in misery. So, he tossed 1 apple by her side, inviting Piggy to eat together. Upon seeing the apple, Piggy celebrated with her happy dance. Since Wazzy has a few extra materials, it shouldn't hurt to give some to Piggy. And so the duo feasted. The problem arose when it was time for the Wazzy to consume the ores that they dug up. How was he supposed to eat rocks without losing all his teeth? Clueless and stuck, he turned to the system for a bit of help. The mission board reappeared, and there was something weird about it. Wazzy protested that he had eaten so many fruits, yet the mission progress remained stagnant at 0. So, he was given a hint to think carefully about what the mission was asking him to do. He was not taking the instructions literally enough. By the word absorb, the system doesn't mean to eat, but to actually absorb. Thinking about it, the boulder mushroom killed and absorbed the blade mantis by sitting on it. For a mushroom, it should be logical to absorb nutrients through the roots. He might have to sit on material with his bare-ass cheeks to do this properly. Wazzy experimented with this bizarre absorption method until deep into the night. Shriveled up materials scattered like trash. The culprit was the mushroom monster tirelessly sitting on fish, ores, and fruits to absorb their essence. It was a slimy and odd-looking ordeal to see. But hard work finally led to a mission being completed. The feeling of eating through his butt was certainly weird, but oddly natural. The 200 EXP was immediately awarded, leveling him up. The exclusive ability is also his responsibility for taking. Wazzy finally reached double digits after grinding his butt the entire day and achieved the sweet milestone of level 10. As for his new ability, he gained something called Decompose. It allows him to break down anything from nature and use it as nourishment. He can also absorb monsters, ores, wood, and other natural materials, but they must be under level 20. Wazzy's SP has gotten too low, and he has to rest. That last mission of his felt as if he just completed a medium difficulty mission. While he was busy, Piggy was just sleeping happily to the side, still clutching the fruit that he gave him. That should be enough for this productive day. A new day started, and as usual, Piggy pigged out on some fruits. Eager for more EXP, Wazzy opened up his next mission. He needs to kill 10 monsters from the Crescent Bay area. The tasks are starting to get more challenging now. With him and Piggy at level 10, they should be able to hunt some lower-level monsters. So, Wazzy mounted his partner in crime as they prepared to head out to hunt. This world is different from games because monsters don't just spawn out of thin air. The duo surveyed the ground with vigilance and eventually spotted a possible target to hunt. A lone slime scampering around. It turned around and saw the hunters closing in. This level 8 green slime would be the perfect prey for Wazzy's mission. Piggy readied up, locking in on the target. When the time was right, the duo did a little fake-out by sending Wazzy alone to perform a mushroom bash. It was pretty effective, but not effective enough. The slime sustained a lot of damage and got dizzy. but it's still alive. By Wazi's estimation, one more hit should finish the job. But with the overactive pig on the loose, nothing can be done so simply. With a barbarous charge, Piggy eviscerated the slime into a million little gooey pieces. Then she landed and flaunted proudly for getting the kill. Wazi was flabbergasted. He was supposed to eliminate that slime for his mission. He just found a low-level monster that's easy to kill, and this pig went ahead and stole it. Wazi was fuming with anger. Surprisingly, the system counted Piggy's kill towards the mission count. He even got EXP for it. As it turned out, Piggy was actually holding a party stone, making the duo an official team. The discovery of this party stone was a big deal for their hunting speed. But Piggy was already sad after hearing Wazi trash her for taking the kill. He awkwardly apologized and swore to find her something delicious to eat for later. Mentioning any promise of food will always be a surefire way to cheer Piggy up. She was so hyped that she took the initiative to jump into the woods and look around for the next target. Piggy must be thinking that partying means looking for food together. Nevertheless, the overactive beast is still pretty reliable. It did not take them long to kill 3 more monsters, adding up to a total of 4. They got 4 slimes after running around all day. Right now, they were heading deeper into the woods, seemingly lost, and the insect activities in the area grew louder and louder. Feeling something was amiss, the duo stopped in their tracks. Then came a ghostly vine moving so fast that it almost whipped them to shreds. Piggy and Wazi recalibrated and scanned the surroundings for the attacker. It turned out to be some sort of ghostly tree thump. Using appraisal, Wazi identified the monster as a level 18 possessed stump, controlled by a low-level evil spirit. And that evil spirit was thirsty for blood as it attacked with the roots yet again. Wazi and Piggy dodged onto the opposite sides of the attack. A level 18 monster's attack is no joke. Getting hit by one would be a huge problem. Wazi and Piggy exchanged a meaningful nod, ready to turn the tables. Over the past few days, they've gotten in sync enough to perform an elaborate combo attack. It was a combination of both Barbarous Charge and Mushroom Bash, both of their go-to offensive skills. The speed and execution were enough to confuse the possessed stump, tanking the hits defenselessly. The resulting impact swept the duo away. Although it looked like the attack worked, the stump didn't even sustain significant damage. It was the duo that suffered the recoil tax instead. Piggy looked like she was down for the count. She suffered the rebound of the Barbarous Charge's dazing effect. Meanwhile, the possessed stump stood up straight, unfazed and angry. Wazi had to admit that it's still too difficult to fight monsters with a significant level gap. Fortunately, an idea struck him while lying down. There's no time for thinking. The stump's roots are shooting out like a whip again. Wazi's first deterrent was a spore explosion. While obscured from view, he tried his best to pull Piggy away. The stump was baffled. It was not used to dealing with this kind of crafty maneuver. It looked around, desperately trying to find the mushroom and the pig to no avail. It quickly lost interest in finding the duo, retreating into the thick of the woods. After a while, the stump returned to its passive state, back to looking like a regular stump once again. It's a good thing that the two managed to hide before the stump could spot them. But Wazi neglected to take one simple fact into account. Piggy is practically in love with his spore explosions and would go crazy just to snort it all up. Wazi tried his best to hold Piggy in place, but there was only so much he could do with his flabby arms. This pig teammate of his just has no self-control at all. Eventually, Wazi had to figure out a compromise that would keep Piggy happy while not disturbing strong enemies. He agreed to let her sniff and lick the top of his mushroom head while emitting a controlled number of spores. After a while, Wazi reckoned that it was time to look for some other monsters to kill. But there's no need for time-consuming scouting as everything's part of the Mighty Mushroom's master plan. Using a small-scale spore explosion, he launched a concentrated cloud of spores forward. It eventually made its way to the possessed stump, and a bunch of small mushrooms quickly emerged. These mushrooms were invasive, nasty, and harmful. As soon as they germinated into a full fungus, the possessed stump suffered 5 HP damage for each one over time. Seeing the monster distracted by the tiny mushroom, it's time for the attack team to roll out. Piggy and Wazi propelled themselves forward for another one of their combo attacks. The Barbarous Charge and Mushroom Bash landed at the same time. Unlike the first time they tried it on the stump, they did not suffer any recoil damage. The experience points were rewarded, and the possessed stump tumbled over, lifeless. The kill was enough to level the pig and the mushroom up to level 11 at the same time. Jumping up levels after killing a stronger monster seemed promising. Using the same strategy, they could kill every possessed stump in these woods. Before departing to hunt more prey, Wazi realized something important. He told Piggy to wait a moment as he climbed up to the stump's motionless body, eventually sitting down. His decompose ability has been activated, and he's pushing himself to absorb the high-level monster in one sitting. His ability immediately started showing its effect as his lower body rotted and absorbed the stump, bark by bark. About halfway through, the thing looked like it came straight out of a horror movie. When Wazi was done, he had less than 50 mana, but the stump had been reduced to just a few pieces of firewood. Decomposing rewarded him with Camouflage and Bark Skin as single-cast abilities. The 200 EXP he got from Decomposing was a lot bigger than the kill EXP itself, but the ability's cooldown takes a whole day. Confused, he asked the system for some info about single-cast abilities. It explained that, as the name suggests, it's a consumable ability that disappears after a single use. So, Camouflage and Bark Skin have been added to Wazi's arsenal. He finally gets it. When the hero gets tasked to kill a boss, they're given a cheat skill. The ability to decompose is his cheat code. Maybe defeating the Demon Lord would actually be doable. Finding an earth mound to use as a temporary refuge for the night, the pig and the mushroom rest their bones. Wazi has reached level 15, and Piggy is at 14. Although the progress was steady, stopping Golem's revival at his level would be laughably impossible. Curious, he asked the system how long it would take for his class to change at his current EXP gain rate. The system clarified that monsters cannot undergo class changes. They get stronger through evolution instead. Each monster has its own unique evolution pathways, taking special mutations and environment into account. As for his next evolutionary point, he'd have to reach level 20. The next one after that would be at 40. That's 5 more levels in the future, and Wazi wanted to know the strongest evolutionary pathway for a mushroom monster like him. He wanted to avoid evolving into that dumb-looking boulder mushroom from before. The system would only give the answer to his question at the cost of 200 gold coins. Wazi was speechless. Even his own system was trying to scam him. This supposedly friendly system was finally showing its true colors. Trying to pacify his annoyance, the system gave Wazi one pathway for free. Upon reaching level 20, a mushroom monster can fulfill the ore requirements to become a boulder mushroom and a diamond mushroom at level 60. Suddenly, the boulder mushroom line doesn't seem too bad. Having a blueprint of an evolutionary pathway would save him time with a material collection of only 200 gold coins. Wazi called out the system for playing dumb when it knew damn well that a monster like him had no cash or gold. Instead of an answer, the system just urged him to figure out a way to earn some. If he got reincarnated as a human, gathering some coins would be easier. As a stupid mushroom monster, it's nearly impossible. So, the system compromised and offered to accept materials in exchange. Even with such a deal, Wazi did not cave in. No matter what the system says, he already has an evolutionary goal cemented in his mind. After seeing the dominance of that king mushroom from back then, he had already steeled his resolve to reach the same level of power. The next day came, and it was a whole day of hunting once again. This time, the enemy is another one of those swift and sharp blade mantises. This was the first medium difficulty mission Wazi had tried. Killing the blade mantis could net him a whopping 500 EXP, and so, the duo dared to face off against the stronger and faster opponent. Wazi opened up the combat by using bark skin on the top of his head. He combined this defensive maneuver with the offensive prowess of Mushroom Bash. The speed at which he propelled himself was supremely difficult to catch, and the clash happened in the blink of an eye. Wazi landed perfectly and proudly proclaimed that the attacks of the blade mantis no longer worked on him. But the moment the insect sheathed the blade, the top of his head split open. That 75 points of damage from a single slice was disconcerting to say the least. So, Wazi enlisted Piggy's help for the next plan that he cooked up. After sharing the battle plan, the mushroom tapped the pig away, entrusting her with a critical mission. The blade mantis remained vigilant, not letting its guard down for a second. Piggy moved up a couple of steps, garnering the attention of the insect. Her careful circling eventually turned into a sudden dash of a ballistic beast. The mantis gladly ran too, aiming to disrupt whatever the pig was cooking. Upon reaching its kill zone, the blade mantis unleashed a quick-draw triple slash. It was a lethal move that could tear everything along its path. But Piggy was swift and nimble enough to dodge. After cleverly avoiding the slashes, she went back to charging forward. This time, the blunt force had actually reached the intended target. The head smash threw the mantis back a few paces. Unbeknownst to the bug, there's a suspicious stump lurking behind. It had the uncanny shape of a mushroom because this was Wazi under the effects of camouflage. The mantis is fast and strong, but its awareness of the surroundings is absolute garbage. He practically got this idea by how a massive boulder mushroom managed to ambush the mantis from back then. Ditching the disguise, Wazi readied a mushroom bash harder and stronger than he had ever unleashed before. The blade mantis turned around and saw what's coming, but it did not have enough time to defend or dodge. Taking the attack head-on, the blade mantis had its head cut off. With more than 300 EXP for each one, the duo leveled up once again. Wazi's been using his only attacking skill so much that it had reached level 4. His experience as a previous gaming genius is shining through. With the correct strategy, higher-level monsters are a piece of cake. Still drunk from the success of the hunt, Wazi immediately asked the system for another medium difficulty mission. This time, it's simply a mission to reach the Mushroom Kingdom to gain 600 EXP. He's not too sure about the distance or the direction of such a place, but it certainly felt like he's about to enter the main quest line of the world. According to the system's estimation, the kingdom is about 400 kilometers away. No matter what context, 400 kilometers is far too huge. Then came the scam. He could avoid all the tiresome walking if he just coughed up a low price of 200 gold coins. Not listening to his system's scam, Wazi chose to rely on Piggy to traverse the entirety of 400 kilometers. She puffed her chest high with pride, not knowing what's to come. After a long and continuous trek, they reached a bizarre stone and tree field at the 20-kilometer mark. Under one of the stone trees, the duo rested beneath the shade, huffing and puffing with fatigue. Wazi was starting to realize that walking the entire length of 400 kilometers would be torture. With his current condition, he'll consume all his stamina after 18 kilometers without resting. Even with Piggy carrying most of the load, their progress was way too little after an entire day. He should have expected something like this mission listed in the medium difficulty. To make matters worse, canceling ongoing missions is not allowed, which means walking to death or figuring out how to pay the system for some gold. This time, it was not even offering freebies. Wazi cursed the smartass who would give him a pay-to-win system after turning into a mushroom. Seeing his suffering, the system dropped a hint about unlocking new abilities. The mushroom grew curious about this new ability crap. Maybe he unlocked something new without knowing? Before he could satisfy his curiosity, chaos exploded from a not-so-far distance. It alerted the duo, preparing for any kind of villainy afoot. As the smoke from the initial explosion cleared out, an ominous scepter showed itself. 2 human players have entered the stone tree area. Then Wazi noticed something even weirder. The cloaked level 28 mage, in this case, looked a lot like the image from the starter village. The bald mage, on the other hand, was already at level 36, and he had his eyes set on something in particular. The pig and the mushroom retreated as the mages advanced. With the magical humans getting dangerously close, Piggy stepped up and tried to intimidate the mages with her tough stance. But Blady and Cloak were unfazed. They continued inching forward. Wazi softly whispered for Piggy to get back to his side, afraid of catching unnecessary attention. But it was too late. Cloak was already up on the pig's guts, kicking her away like a stuffed toy. A simple kick from a high-level player that doesn't even invest in strength caused quite a stir. Piggy looked to be unconscious, knocked out by a sudden physical assault. Wazi's eyes were glued on Piggy's deflated figure in the distance. Baldy and Cloak just walked past him as if he didn't exist, like he was nothing in their eyes. Cloak even looked disgusted to see a low-ranking demon in this high-level field. Wazi was still in a daze. Meanwhile, Baldy had already reached what he was aiming for from the start. After risking his life for so long, he can finally get his hands on the final item required for his class change, the Firestorm Hawk Egg. Picking up one of the spotted red eggs, Baldy could already feel a new power within his grasp. While the mages were celebrating their discovery, Wazi misunderstood that they were talking about him. The mere thought of being hunted by these powerful players sent a shiver down his mushroom spine. So, he did what he did best and cluttered the view with a high-volume spore explosion. It made Baldy and Cloak cough, their throats irritated by the spores. A normal mushroom monster in the wild should not possess this type of technique, but Cloak had seen something similar before. He also knew that what follows the spore is trouble, so they might need to pick up the pace, get the eggs, and leave. Piggy had woken up and was out for blood right from the get-go. Seeing her push forward with a barbarous charge, the mages did not even bat an eye. Even when she got near the high-level Baldy, the mage remained chill. With a quick twist of a hand and a little magic, Baldy's body became an afterimage. Without a target, Piggy was left hanging in the air, propelled by an attack that went too fast. She eventually missed the target by a wide margin, hitting her head on a stone tree instead. Once again, the poor little pig has been knocked unconscious. Surprisingly, she landed on top of the remaining eggs. Fortunately, none of the eggs cracked. The scene was basically pork and eggs with a side of a leafy green vegetable. But that homey vibe wasn't meant to last long as the tree's twisted bark started loosening up. The tension from the twist must have been so strong that it was cracking the stone it was growing on. Wazi gritted his teeth in frustration. They could have had a chance to escape had that stupid pig not attacked. As a consequence, his odd appearance and actions have earned the genuine curiosity of Cloak. But that curiosity must wait as a more alarming scenario was about to unfold. If you use appraisal, you'd know that these twisted trees are marigot vines. It's a plant that has the defense mechanism of swinging its stone to fend off threats. These egg-stealing mages definitely qualify as threats. But it looks like Wazi will also be pulled into this mess. He has no other choice. Caught up in the chaos, Wazi decided to mushroom bash his way out of the rampaging stones. He propelled himself back up to one of the treetops where Piggy was. It was a dangerous jump, but he made it in one piece. Unfortunately, they are trapped at the top of a bizarre slinging plant. To make matters worse, the spin was starting to reach other marigold vines. Once the original spinner unwinds, the rest of the vines quickly follow suit. One vine untangling caused a ripple effect that threw the situation out of control. Before you know it, almost every vine in the area is spinning wildly. Piggy got dizzy, and Wazzy tried to stay steady. Meanwhile, Baldy, the mage, used flickers and magic shields to desperately evade and dodge the spinners. Cloak was also doing the same thing, albeit with a little more struggle on account of his lower level. The real victims in this case were innocent beasts just grazing near the area. They were just chilling in the grasslands, and now they're getting blasted by heavy spinning rocks. The fascinating thing about these vines is their ability to clamp back up together after the rampage. Sometimes they would even crush their unwitting victims in the rooted rubble. From there, the roots would work their magic, sucking the life out of the prey. After a little bit of sucking, things would return to normal as if nothing horrifying just happened. Wazzy was disturbed by the sight of this brutal field. Piggy was too dizzy to see. As for the mages caught up in the mess, they looked to Wazzy and Piggy with resentment. The simple egg snatch mission turned complicated. Baldy might have a high level, but his mana could only sustain the flickers and magic shields so much. He suffered some nasty injuries from those stones. Cloak suffered the same fate, and he directed his fury on the pig and the mushroom. Wazzy panicked as two high-level mages turned their spells against him. He would have been finished if something did not just fly over the field, covering the sun itself. The mages turned around in fright. This was the worst-case scenario for them. They used 1,000 gold to hire a group of mercenaries, but those losers couldn't hold this giant bird a little longer. Obscured by the sunlight, they just saw a shadow descending in their general direction. When it got closer, the glaring eyes of the massive avian beast came into view. The next thing you know, the entire field of marigold vines has been smashed to bits by an explosive crash landing. Unfortunately, the mages were quick enough to summon frost walls, shielding them from destruction and injuries. The big, angry bird shrieked in the most grating way possible. Wazzy discreetly used appraisal to check on what that bird's deal was. It was identified as a level 47 firestorm hawk. Other than the name and level, he wasn't able to see anything else. Cloak needed some cover to drink some mana potions, as those marigold vines absolutely tanked his mana bar. But Baldy's not doing any better. If left to defend alone, he won't survive the next attack. If that's the case, they might need to use a rare high-grade potion bought from the Mage Alliance. Cloak was yapping too much, so the bird killed him first. Left alone, Baldy watched as the incinerated body of his junior hit the ground. Along with the eerie thud, he knew that it was time to bring out everything he had for the sake of survival. Not letting the corpse of a mage go to waste, Firestorm Hawk swallowed a hefty dinner without chewing. Slowly and menacingly, the bird beast turned to the next target. Baldy quickly emptied out his inventory, rummaging through a pile of potions and concoctions. He got all kinds of potions, with a big blue one as the centerpiece. He chugged the blue liquid of the high-grade mana potion and swiftly enjoyed its efficacy. The hawk was on the move, but Baldy refused to submit. The situation has quickly devolved into a kill or be killed scenario. As the sharp talons of the hawk swoop in, Baldy did the unthinkable. He taunted the bird with its own egg, used as some sort of deterrent. Afraid of harming its own child, the hawk stopped midway through the charge. The intense heat it brought burned off Baldy's clothes. The slow rip revealed Baldy's body and his excellent taste when it comes to underwear. It also made him puke his guts and blood out from the pressure. But despite all that, he was glad. It is said that high-ranked monsters have intelligence, and that seems accurate. The hawk can't bear to attack him for fear of smashing the egg into pieces. Firestorm Hawk did not know what to do. This scumbag of a human was using an innocent egg as a shield while casting Thunderbolt for free, without interruption. No matter how fast a hawk could fly, lightning will always be faster, and being struck by one would be a death sentence. It brought the high-level beast down to the ground, plucking it out of the air. The damage was severe, but the debuff was even more so. The hawk's entire body was paralyzed. Baldy ranted that he's turning 50 soon, and he still hasn't gone through his second-class change. Because of his age, the requirements are becoming more complex too. But at least he can finally vent some anger out on killing a high-ranking monster like a Firestorm Hawk today. With this kill, those people who called him trash and useless will taste the bitterness of revenge. Baldy made sure to hurt the bird without mercy. This was his only way of releasing years of frustration for being a mediocre mage without the talent to reach the top. After a few minutes of brutal stomping, he reckons that it's about time to end this. So he took out a synthetic poison from the inventory. Synthesized by level 40+ poison masters, this cocktail should do the trick. He shattered the whole bottle and promptly coated some summoned icicle spears at their tip. Using his scepter to command the power of ice, he aimed at the helpless hawk. Icicle spears quickly lodged themselves into various parts of the bird, making it bleed and hurt. The cold and the sharpness were a savage combo, so add the poison, and this might just be the worst way to go. Firestorm Hawk cried in agony for one last time and slumped to the floor. Baldy noticed that a pseudo-tier 2 magic wasn't enough for the kill, but he could just run it back with his ruby staff. As he was preparing the next batch of attacks, cursing the bird for being stupidly sentimental about one egg, the hawk shrieked as thunder roared. From a distance, Wazi's camouflage duration just ended. Baldy was pumped that he could finally become the main character after all those years of being ordinary. But his plans were thwarted by a simple sneak attack coming from behind. Wazi's mushroom bash went straight to the back of the neck and finished the mage off. The ruby staff dimmed, and the egg flew up into the air. Firestorm Hawk was still paralyzed and couldn't move to save the child. Thankfully, Wazi paid enough attention, and he could move quick enough to catch the egg. He sighed in relief that the egg was safe. Seeing that it was the opportune time to move, the hawk fought the paralysis and managed to bitch-slap Baldy's body so hard that he almost lost his underwear. Shocked by how fast his victory was snatched, Baldy desperately tried to formulate an escape plan. He brought out a recall scroll, a consumable teleportation magic out of his pocket. Instead of a teleportation magic circle, he watched as a much bigger infernal pillar magic circle appeared below him. With a scream of pure pain and suffering, Baldy was burnt alive. His skin was charred as every last nerve ending felt the pain of being cooked. Wazi watched in fear. This should be what the Firestorm Hawks are doing. That mage kill has pushed the hawk to level up and shed all kinds of injuries, poison, and paralysis. The beast let out a triumphant shriek that traveled throughout the lands. Wazi, who was just a few steps away from the bird, almost got swept by the pressure and wind. Then, the hawk came up to him. Or more accurately, came up to the egg that he was holding. The beast just stared menacingly, and at that moment, the egg showed initial signs of cracking. A few seconds of slight movements later, the shell continued to crack even further. What came out of the egg was a Firestorm Hawk chick with a little dribble of fire at the top of its head. The chick looked around and hopped on the ground. Turning around, the first living being it saw was the mushroom monster. The chick smiled and chirped to him. Another problem just arose. The Firestorm Hawk chick had taken a liking to Wazi, so it must have mistaken him for a parent. Meanwhile, the real parent teared up upon seeing the chick imprinted on a freaking mushroom monster. The hawk tried to gently call the chick to no avail. Even with tears welling up, the chick was unfazed. It even sent a nasty kick right into the big bird's face. The little one must have thought that the giant bird was a threat to Wazi. Wazi felt a little awkward and disturbed. Once again, he's roped into something very strange. While that was happening, the rest of the eggs were also starting to hatch. Everyone's attention turned to the treetop where it was happening. Those two remaining chicks have surprisingly taken a liking to Piggy. The hawk showed a face full of parental love, cooing gently to the newborn hawks, showing them a warm smile that only a familial figure can give. The two chicks responded by punching and kicking the big bird again. They prefer playing and hanging out with Piggy, the first living being they saw and imprinted on. Wazi had to admit that without the looming threat of being killed by the parents, these little critters were genuinely adorable. The duo laughed and played with the chicks like they did not just come from a horrible situation earlier. The hawk fell down in the dumps. Sure, it leveled up, but the children's love was snatched as soon as they hatched. Seeing this, Wazi got hit with a brain blast, an idea that would fix everyone's problems. First, Piggy and the little hawks must follow him. They came up to the big bird, and Wazi bravely took the forefront. Blaming him for this bizarre incident, the hawk stared Wazi down intently. The hawk's intimidating posture was broken by some pecks coming from the firstborn hawk. The pain wasn't physical. It hurt the big bird right in the feels instead. In a heartbreaking turn of events, 3 chicks have turned against their parent. This would have continued if Wazi had not intervened to correct their behavior. Making them watch, the mushroom monster acted out what happened just a few minutes ago to explain how much the Firestorm Hawk sacrificed just to get them into safety. Wazi asserted that the chicks should treat their real parent accordingly, as this beast placed her life on the line to protect them. The hawk was moved. When the mushroom told the chicks to give their parent a hug, the big bird could finally hold its offspring. Wazi is pretty happy to see that everything went off without a hitch, and figures the least this giant bird can do to repay the favor is give them a lift to the Mushroom Kingdom. But when the big bird looks his way, it shoots him a death glare, and Wazi starts having second thoughts about whether this bird is actually going to repay them for their kindness. The bird just turns away and proceeds to leave, and it's all happy to have its little chicks by its side. On the other hand, Wazi is left on the brink of tears, watching his last hope of reaching the Mushroom Kingdom go away. He nervously asks if the bird could maybe give them a ride to the Mushroom Kingdom. As soon as his shaky voice hits the bird's ears, it whirls around, and, with a tone dripping with arrogance, this giant furball cockily asks if this puny mushroom thinks it can give orders to such a majestic bird. Wazi is about to crap his pants hearing this. Not only can the bird speak human language, but our boy can also clearly tell from the tone of its voice that this massive bird is a guy. While our fella trembles like a leaf, that giant bird stomps toward him, each step rattling the ground. With eyes blazing and head burning like an inferno, this overgrown chicken demands to know how in the hell this puny punk tried to boss him around. But suddenly the bird feels an intense wave of pain coursing through its body and coughs up blood, leaving those little furballs chirping out of worry for their parent. The bird starts feeling dizzy and soon collapses to the ground, which even leaves our duo stunned for a moment. The little fellas beg for their parent to stand up, but the bird's eyes start to lose focus. He even starts imagining our cute buddies as ferocious animals, laughing at his miserable state. After a few hours, the bird finally starts to wake up. The first thing it sees is its children sleeping soundly, wrapped in scorching flames for some reason we don't know. The giant bird lets out a confused growl, but then realizes that his kids are just peacefully sleeping. This fills him with warmth, and he cracks a smile at the sight of his adorable little ones. But that warm expression quickly turns into one of pure hate and frustration when his eyes land on our buddy Piggy, who's sleeping without a care in the world. The bird tries to stand up, but as soon as it puts any weight on its feet, it crashes right back down and lets out a painful growl. Looks like the bird's still suffering from some synthetic poison, and even after leveling up, it's not letting up. Suddenly, the clinking of bottles grabs the bird's attention. There's our Piggy pal, dumping out this pouch of potions onto the ground. Along with the potions, there's a bunch of other random stuff, like gold coins, which seems pretty pointless for a mushroom like him. The bird calls out to our boy, who picks up one of the potions and quickly walks toward the bird. With each step the Piggy takes, the hawk grows more anxious. As expected, Wazzy tips the potion bottle into the hawk's mouth, and the liquid pours in. The bird feels pretty pathetic, not even having the strength to fend off this annoying little creature who's probably just made him drink something gross. But as soon as that liquid hits its belly, the bird's senses perk up. It seems like this potion is actually helping, and Mushroom is relieved that these humans brought the antidote along. He knows it'll still take a while for the effects to kick in, so he tells the bird to just rest for now. The hawk then asks why he was saved, and Wazzy reminds him that he has kids to raise, so he needs to stick around and make sure they're okay. Feeling a bit guilty for doubting Wazzy, the hawk starts trying to stand up again. Mushroom also admits that he didn't have any bad intentions. They were just asking for a ride to the Mushroom Kingdom since they were passing through. The hawk looks at Piggy and makes it clear that the path they're on is packed with powerful monsters. He adds that even if they manage to reach the Mushroom Kingdom, it'd be really dangerous for Piggy. Wazzy asks why, and the hawk explains that the king of the Mushroom Kingdom is notorious for attacking anyone who doesn't belong to their tribe. This finally makes sense to Mushroom why the bird was so ticked off about giving them a ride to the kingdom, because he didn't want to risk getting himself in trouble. As Mushroom is processing this, the hawk gives him a fierce stare that sends a shiver down his spine. Mushroom quickly shrinks back in fear, and the hawk calls him a weirdo. Wazzy shoots back, asking why he's the weirdo, and thinks to himself that the hawk is the real weirdo here for creeping up like that. Then the hawk says that for a mushroom monster, he should have been a brainless hobo, but he's actually a pretty sharp and intelligent guy. The bird starts drooling and even fantasizes about feeding Piggy to his kids, thinking a creature with such high intelligence would make a great meal. The poor guy freaks out again, but the bird suddenly bursts into gut-busting laughter, reassuring Wazzy that he was just messing with him. The mood turns serious as the hawk tells Wazzy that he's not the kind of creature who plunders everything for his own selfish desires, unlike those despicable humans. The hawk explains that he doesn't care what they do with the eggshells they want so badly, but he can't stand humans breaking his eggs before they even hatch. His previous nests and all his chicks fell victim to this kind of cruelty. Looks like Mushroom now understands that human greed is a real problem. The bird then starts to glow with fiery energy, and as he fully recovers from the poison, he bursts into a blaze of fire, radiating with newfound strength. He then smiles at his chicks, gives Wazzy a hearty thanks for saving them this time, and promises to return the favor by giving our boy a free ride to the Mushroom Kingdom. Wazzy does not understand what this big bird said, because he is more focused on cooling his sizzling feet down. But then he finally realizes that they're really going to the Mushroom Kingdom, and his face lights up like a kid in the candy store. The hawk confirms it, once again saying, "Yep, we're heading to the Mushroom Kingdom. Now shut the hell up and get some rest." But Wazzy quickly tells the bird to just chill and get some rest, because he's got a bit of business to handle before hitting the hay. He quickly grabs those potions and starts messing around with them, leaving the hawk totally baffled about what this nerd is up to. Meanwhile, once he whips up a slime gel, he tosses it into the mix. When it's ready, he picks up a rock, sets it beside the plate, and then proudly shows off his hot peachy butt, which could probably put the entire adult industry out of business. He dips his butt into the liquid, and with his decomposition ability, he starts making some hilarious noises that don't sit too well with the bird. Wazzy takes a deep breath and starts puking the newly made liquid right back into the bottle. The bird is absolutely flabbergasted by this creepy sight. With puke still dripping from his mouth and his butt still soaked with the potion, Wazzy cheerfully offers the stuff to the hawk. The bird's absolutely not interested in drinking this literal piece of reverse crap and flatly refuses. Here's the system window listing all the stuff my man snagged today. I'll spare you the details. Feel free to pause the video if you want to check out all the stats. The next day rolls around, and they're soaring through the skies. The hawk's got our duo gripped in his sharp claws, and Piggy seems to be loving this free ride. The hawk mentions they're getting close to the Mushroom Kingdom, so it's time to prepare for the descent. He quickly shifts his trajectory downward, and Wazzy's face looks like he's about to lose it, while Piggy is enjoying every moment. Once Wazzy finally passes out from the nerves, Piggy lights up at the sight of the majestic Mushroom Kingdom. He starts oinking to wake up his unconscious buddy. When Wazzy opens his eyes, they finally get a good look at the Mushroom Kingdom. As soon as the hawk enters the territory of the Mushroom Kingdom, two root-like things shoot up from the ground and head straight for him. He quickly warns his buddies to hold on tight because things are about to get wild. Once they cling to each other, the hawk dives down, picking up bullet speed. He takes a huge breath and lets out a massive fire breath, creating a gigantic explosion in the air. Meanwhile, Mushroom is still confused about what's attacking them. The hawk explains that it's the mushrooms themselves. As the fire clears, they finally get a clear view of a serene landscape. Above the boundary wall, they see soldier mushrooms guarding the post. There's a mushroom magician in the mix, and he's a level 44 powerhouse. His stats are off the charts, and he's a special kind of mushroom. With a calm, graceful vibe and some serious magic skills, he helps lower-ranking mushrooms evolve. He lives only in the Mushroom Kingdom, and is one of the king's top helpers. As expected, the magician starts chanting spells and casts one on an ordinary mushroom. The mushroom starts shaking like crazy and quickly transforms into a total badass. This new transformation is called Bomb Shroom, a level 24 critter. Even though its stats are pretty low, it can self-destruct, making it a serious threat. Bomb Shroom starts hopping around and jumps into the barrel of another mushroom known as Cannon Shroom, who looks a bit dumb like me at first glance. Cannon Shroom is another oddball, because he's got a lot of legs, and his nose-like thing on top of his head doubles as a cannon connected to his real nose. You can check out the rest of the details, but we need to change the panel quickly, because this guy is about to sneeze. His nose is dripping with liquid, and as he takes a huge breath, Bomb Shroom gets ready. When Cannon Shroom finally sneezes, Bomb Shroom goes flying through the air, and all the other Cannon Shrooms shoot their Bomb Shrooms up into the sky. Seeing these little troublemakers heading his way, the hawk quickly changes direction. The mushrooms, with their cheeky smiles, explode in midair, but the hawk dodges them as best he can. When another Bomb Shroom gets close, it goes into self-destruct mode, but before it hits, the hawk manages to conjure up a firewall to protect himself from the explosions. The hawk announces that they've passed the outer layer, and he's about to take them into the inner area, after which they'll be on their own. It looks like my guy has already passed out, but Piggy is still buzzing with excitement from the flight. As the hawk heads deeper into the territory, he suddenly senses something. The air is thick with magic, and the hawk starts sweating bullets when he realizes the powerful magic is coming from the Mushroom King. He quickly tells them he's not going any further. The hawk finally drops them off, and they're totally lost. Once they start to realize how messed up their situation is, my guy is freaking out, with tears streaming down his face. Then, out of nowhere, a rainbow appears, and they both crash onto it, sliding down like it's some bizarre fairy tale, and the mushroom is still completely clueless. They keep sliding down until they finally hit the ground. Piggy seems perfectly fine, but my guy's mouth starts leaking after that wild tumble and landing on his butt. Just as they're breathing a sigh of relief for not meeting their end, the rocks around them start creeping in. Before they know it, they're surrounded by hard stone mushrooms. While Wazzy is trembling with fear, Piggy remains as chill as can be, as if dealing with these creepy mushroom monsters is just another part of his daily routine. Of course, the giant mushrooms aren't too happy about intruders. They get seriously pissed off and close in on them, throwing curses like they've got a whole dictionary of them. Mushroom quickly figures out that Piggy is the main target, and Piggy responds with aggression to those mushrooms. But Wazzy gives the pink one a bonk on the head and starts dragging him away, knowing they stand no chance against these hulking monsters. The other mushrooms start chasing them, forming a horde of stone fungi hot on their heels. As Wazzy is running for his life, their path gets blocked by the same mushroom boulders ahead. They quickly change direction, but it looks like there's no way out, since they're surrounded from all sides. In a last-ditch effort, Wazzy lets loose a spore explosion, which is a giant fart that momentarily startles the giant mushrooms. Amidst the chaos, Wazzy starts giving Piggy a makeover, slapping mushrooms and other stuff all over him. Once he's done, a smirk spreads across his face as he tells the angry mushrooms they're barking up the wrong tree, because he and his buddy are actually part of the mushroom family. The big dumb mushrooms are totally stunned when they hear this. Wazzy pulls the curtain back, revealing Piggy as a brand new mushroom species he literally pulled out of his rear. An awkward silence settles over everyone, and the little mushrooms sticking to Piggy start falling off, leaving the big guys completely baffled and scratching their heads like, "What in the world is going on?" Wazzy quickly slaps the fallen mushrooms back onto Piggy, and they just start walking away. Since they're no longer a threat, they slip off quietly, leaving the mushrooms behind completely lost and confused. Wazzy is glad that these monsters are pretty clueless, but Piggy points out that the disguise actually looks pretty convincing. Looks like not everyone is as dumb as they thought, though. From above, a new guy calls out, all cocky, and asks if Wazzy is being controlled by humans. The system flashes Shita Kenobi's profile card, but the appraisal skill our boy has can't figure out this newcomer's stats, leaving Wazzy worried that this one is actually a higher-level mushroom and he can't trick it like others. Shita Kenobi quickly realizes that only humans could control this skill and starts to think Wazzy might be a pet controlled by humans. Wazzy, however, shoots down the accusation and claims he's just a chill mushroom like the rest. Suddenly, a mushroom cap comes flying right at our duo, but it zips past them, and the one behind it is the same thin mustache guy, probably showing off his moves. He sheaths his sword, picks up his hat, and announces that as a guardian of this territory, he's going to make sure no threats get through. And this guy goes by the name Kago, one of the big mushroom generals. Before Wazzy can even try to talk his way out of this, his HP drops like a rock. He finds himself sliced in two, leaving Piggy in shock as Wazzy falls apart on the ground. Its tears start flowing as it watches Wazzy fall to pieces, and the scene is just devastating to say the least. Its cute little self turns into pure fury as it charges at Cage all fired up. Piggy leaps at Cage with a wild charge, but this man barely blinks and gives Piggy a solid thud right on his back, knocking him out cold and sending him crashing to the ground. After that, the general raises his sword in an attempt to slice our fella into two, and as he is about to give his final swing, a sound of bellowing horn grabs at attention, and the sound waves ripple through the entire area. Hearing the commotion, the man quickly forgets what he was doing and starts bouncing toward the source of the sound. Not just him, but all the mushrooms are going wild, marching toward the same spot. Meanwhile, our boy, who was sliced into two pieces, somehow manages to connect himself back together and glue himself back to one piece like nothing happened. Wazzy is stunned, wondering how he's back in one piece since he didn't have any revival coins. Turning his attention to Piggy, Wazzy rushes over, worried sick, and asks if he's okay. But Piggy doesn't say a word, and Wazzy's anxiety grows. He starts crying for his friend and, without realizing it, erupts into another fart. Tears flow as he curses himself for dragging Piggy into this mess. As soon as that stinky fart hits little one's nostrils, he springs back to life, nearly knocking Wazzy over in the process. Piggy can clearly sense that his friend is alive, and, seeing Wazzy on the ground, she jumps on him and starts licking him like he's the most delicious thing ever. After they are done catching up, they notice a strange sound echoing through the area. As soon as it hits Wazzy's ears, he becomes hypnotized and starts walking toward the sound like a zombie. Piggy tries to pull him back, and after a lot of effort, he somehow manages to snap Wazzy out of the trance. Mushroom shakes his head, trying to clear the dizziness, but the sound is still echoing around, pulling him back into hypnosis. This time he dashes straight toward the voice, leaving Piggy rushing after him, oinking in a panic. Shortly after, we find ourselves near a waterfall where all the mushrooms have gathered, weapons in hand, ready for a fight. They're facing off against a group of humans charging at them, and chaos erupts as the two sides collide. Among the humans, there's Kugu Kaguya, a massive guy from the Firebane Guild, known for his D-rank combat skills and his role as a shield warrior. He's effortlessly blocking mushroom attacks with his giant shield. Next to him is Chase, also from the Firebane Guild and a fellow D-rank combatant, wielding his sword on the offensive. While Chase takes down mushrooms left and right, Kugu Kaguya is busy defending their group's rear. Just as Chase is about to be attacked by a sneaky mushroom trying to shove a spear up his ass, the little one is suddenly pierced by an arrow. The culprit behind this arrow is Prima Kaguya, a junior archer from the same guild. She's not the top of the ranks, but she's definitely making her mark. The angry mob of mushrooms marches at the trio after seeing their friend mercilessly butchered. The three humans quickly huddle together, worried about how to handle these angry ones. But their worries are cut short when a new player swoops in and freezes all the mushrooms in an instant. With their enemies frozen stiff, the trio wastes no time, slicing and smashing the frozen mushrooms with their weapons. It looks like their ace has arrived on the battlefield. Taha Taha, a C-rank combatant and ice mage. But just when things seem to be settling down, more mushrooms arrive, and this time, we are talking about mecha shrooms. Taha reacts fast, slamming down an ice barrier to protect himself. But the mecha shroom's drill smashes right through the ice, leaving Taha and the others shocked. Before anyone can react, there's a massive explosion, and Taha is caught in the blast, with half of his body blasted away by the drill. As the injured Taha calls out for his senior brother, the angry mecha mushrooms zoom in on him. That's when his big brother finally shows up, looking really ticked off. He throws his blazing spear straight at the mechas, and that single fiery spear blows them to bits. This furious big guy is Wagga Waka, another member of the guild, and he's a fire mage. Wagga decides to grab Taha and make a run for the city as fast as possible. But the worried lady reminds him that if he runs from the battlefield, he'll face punishment by the guild. On the other hand, Taha keeps begging for help, not wanting to die. Wagga finally makes his call. He'll face whatever punishment comes his way, rather than letting his brother die. More mecha shrooms charge at them, and Fatty quickly slams his shield at front, reminding everyone that they're in a battlefield and need to focus rather than squabbling. He sends one mecha flung backward, and while it's still trying to gain its balance, Chase seizes his moment and picks up his speed, then leaps into the air and drives his sword straight into the mecha's head, shutting it down for good. Wagga Waka is ready to bail, not wanting to risk their lives for the big shots they're working for. But Chase disagrees, because he believes this is just the guild's way of testing its members, and after fighting so long, giving up now would be foolish. The other soldiers are all pretty wiped out as well, and Chase want to continue to fight after putting so much effort. The shield guy nods in agreement, saying he's been stuck at D rank forever and is itching to climb the ranks. He's had enough of scraping the bottom and wants to finally make a name for himself. The other soldiers quickly charge forward to take down these mushrooms. Meanwhile, the hypnotizing war horn keeps blaring, riling up the mushrooms again. The fallen soldiers start to heal and quickly rise to their feet. Their roots, and they are looking even angrier this time. Wagga grits his teeth in frustration as he sees the monsters he thought were defeated coming back to life. The mushroom mecha under Chase's feet also gets back into action, and the poor guy starts stabbing the mecha out of sheer terror. The shield fatty tells his friend to simmer down, saying they need to regroup. But before he can say more, he gets a solid punch to the face, sending him staggering backward and leaving the others shocked to see their leader's messed up face. They quickly turn around to see the reincarnation of John Cena standing before them, a massive shroom known as Muscle Shroom, who just floored the 200-pound guy with a single punch. Wagga, fed up with all this nonsense, finally unleashes all his fury in the form of flames. He conjures a giant blob of fire and hurls it toward John Cena. But then, out of nowhere, the mage shroom quickly uses his chant over an ordinary mushroom, which grows into a gigantic mushroom umbrella and takes all the fire on top of its head like it's no big deal. Baldy's shiny head is practically dripping sweat as he realizes this tiny creature just blocked his heaviest spell like it was no big deal. Meanwhile, the cannon shrooms make their grand entrance, and with a single sneeze, they send the bomb shrooms flying, which explode right in Wagga Waka's face, turning him into a gory mess and killing him on the spot. More cannon shrooms crawl in, loaded with even more bomb shrooms. Soon, there's a whole line of cannon shrooms ready to take down the enemies. The captain rallies his soldiers, urging them to take out every last one of these abominable critters. The cannon shrooms start firing, hurling bombs right at the humans. But just as things are heating up, more human reinforcements arrive, and they come in a giant balloon known as a flying boat. The entire boat is packed with formidable human warriors, who appear to be the ultimate heroes of this guild. First up, we've got Seth Ubel, the sword general, sitting pretty at level 69. Clearly, he's not one to mess with. Then there's Uth, the beastmaster with claws that could probably shred a steel door, and Nia, the ninja in sleek black gear. Nia is the first to speak, telling her subordinates they better get down there before their fellow guild members bite the dust. Sure, they're just low level, but she insists they can't let them die needlessly. Next we've got Marianne, a high priest at level 68, and Boria Manhinov, the gunslinger with a huge gun. Boria reminds Nia that Marianne's powers are too rare to waste on these low-level monsters. Nia tries again, urging them to dive in before the mushroom army gets any stronger. But Boria reminds her they can't make a move without the vice leader's orders. And the vice leader? Well, he's chilling in the shadows, known as Gilheim, a fire magus with a massive level 129. Back on solid ground, we spot a new kind of mushroom, the needle shroom. This little guy is busy pulling out tiny spears for his buddies to use in battle. When a regular mushroom hops over to him, Needle Shroom uses his stick and some magic to give this ordinary fella hands to grab the spears and legs to walk. Voila! Another formidable soldier ready to fight. It looks like Needle Shroom is in charge of turning these plain shrooms into tough fighters. Once he's pulled all the spears from above his head, he's bald again, but he starts exerting force. Even more spears pop out of his tiny holes, and he grows back all of his sticks with a mighty roar of determination. On the other hand, other types of mushrooms are getting riled up to take down the monsters. It looks like we're finally catching a glimpse of the king mushroom, because he's the only one sporting a tiny crown atop his massive cap. Out of nowhere, a mischievous-looking mushroom, known as the assassin shroom, makes his entrance. He leaps from the ground, going straight for the king mushroom, and snatches away the horn-type weapon the king was holding. Back on the ship, everyone's watching intently. The Beastmaster is thrilled to see that the king's best weapon has been taken down. Finally, the man in the shadows gives his friend the green light to join the fray, and all the squad members eagerly nod in agreement. On the other hand, the king mushroom is absolutely livid, while the assassin shroom is going berserk, piercing everyone with these needle-like weapons that have a mouse shape. Once a needle is right above their heads, it hijacks their brains, turning the poor soldiers against the king. They lunge at him, but they're quickly obliterated by a hail of bullets, and they fall to the ground riddled with holes. And behind all this chaos is none other than Bo, one of the 4 great mushroom generals. She's the badass lady casually puffing on a cigar and wielding double guns like she's out for a Sunday stroll. But then, we spot a suspicious-looking gecko popping up in the background. It appears to be another puppet, and it's holding those same hypnotizing needles. Without wasting any time, this crawling creature lunges at the king with the needles, but a few quick slashes from a sword slice the lizard into pieces, and the one wielding the sword is Cage, one of the king's generals. The king picks up the dead assassin mushroom from the ground, absolutely furious that his people are getting caught up in these cruel human schemes. He absorbs the dead mushroom, which vanishes almost immediately. With a huge roar of frustration and anger, he commands his entire army to march forward. The soldiers quickly respond to their king's energy and start the march. We're finally back with our duo, and it looks like Wazi is still hypnotized. But as soon as the monster shroom grabs the horn from the king's hands, Wazi suddenly snaps out of the trance. He quickly asks for a rundown of what just happened, but Piggy seems pretty annoyed and angry at him. Nevertheless, they look ahead and see explosions erupting in the fields below. As they peek over from the hill, there's an entire army of mushrooms popping up, ready to take on the humans. The duo is just lying on the ground, watching from the sidelines, and both of them cheer the mushrooms on, eager to see them take down these filthy humans. The battlefield is a complete massacre, with the mushrooms clearly having the upper hand. The muscle shroom, for example, is out there smashing human skulls with his bare fists, and some of them are getting ripped apart by other heavy-hitter shrooms. And then there's Chase. He was all heroic and brave not too long ago, but now he's crying like a baby. As fear takes over, he collapses to his knees and admits he doesn't give a seahorse crap about being brave, he just wants to get the heck out of there. Looks like Chase's wish has been granted because the elite members of the guild have arrived, appearing from the sky like angels descending from the heavens. It's like a beacon of hope in the darkness for everyone. They tell the worried soldiers to take a rest from here on out because they'll be taking charge. The priestess wastes no time, using her mass teleportation powers to trap soldiers in bubbles and float them up into the sky. The mushrooms down below are totally clueless about what the heck is going on. With a final burst of magic, the priestess summons a giant enchantment circle and everyone is sucked into it and vanishes. Seeing the newcomers, the mushrooms go wild. The Goldie guy, looking menacing, tells his buddy they need to finish off these monsters ASAP. With that, he swings his gigantic sword and charges straight at the mushrooms after activating his ability known as Hero Blade. A single burst of light from the Goldie's blade slices through every monster in its path like a sci-fi laser. The entire nearby area is obliterated with just that one move. At the same time, Nia leaps into the air and unleashes her shadow clone technique. Her clones multiply rapidly, each grabbing a whirlwind shuriken and throwing them down with relentless speed. The shuriken blades split into multiple blades, and in the blink of an eye, thousands of blades rain down on the poor mushrooms like a catastrophic storm. The mage shroom quickly swings its wand, marking an ordinary mushroom to grow and shield them from the relentless attack. The mushroom cap absorbs all those steel blades right on its head, but in a surprising twist, the blades retract from the mushroom cap, leaving the mages baffled. Before they can react, a sniper bullet streaks through the air, taking out one mage with deadly precision. Soon, every mage is picked off with similar accuracy. The mastermind behind this deadly precision is none other than the gunslinger. The usually clueless guy who only ever sneezes is seriously annoyed now. Seeing someone who can actually match his precision is not sitting well with him. So he decides to unleash some self-destructing bombs, but the gunslinger just laughs it off, saying they're way too slow. Heck, even a water pistol would have better range and speed. The gunslinger pulls out his lucky bullet, swings it into the air, and loads it into his gun. He takes aim, and that single bullet turns into a barrage of tiny bullets. The bullets tear through the incoming self-destructing mushrooms, stopping the bombs before they can even get close. But that's not all. His bullets don't just stop the bombs, they shred the mushrooms too. The sneezing guys are hit from every direction. Their HPs drop like crazy, and soon they're just dead bodies ready to drop on the ground. The other mushroom people rush forward to see their fallen comrades. But then the beast girl steps up. First, she puts some makeup over her face, then opens her bag, and out comes a giant beast claw. It quickly snatches up the poor mushroom folks like they're just pebbles. Once she's got them in hand, the claw retracts, and the beast inside her bag lets out a satisfied burp after gobbling them all up. Our duo is still tuned in, watching this wild show. The little pig has fallen asleep, bored by these mushroom squabbles. Wazi, on the other hand, is terrified, because this fight is a total one-sided massacre, like high-level players clearing waves of low-level mobs. The Goldie guy tells his crew to aim for the king next. He gets ready to unleash his move again, and the assassin preps to use his trick too. The gunslinger pulls out his trump card once more. Together, they unleash their powers, which merge into a formidable, unstoppable arrow heading straight for the king. Just as the big attack is about to hit, the ground erupts, and a massive wall shoots up from the debris. The powerful strike slams into the wall, and everyone is left stunned, watching their attack get blocked like it was nothing. That's when we catch sight of a pair of sunglasses, a smirk, and a giant crystal mushroom, looking like it just had a Snoop Dogg moment. Meet Diamond Shroom. He's not just flashy, he's tanky too, and you can check out his specific stats if you want to see just how tough he really is. The Mushroom King is now feeling pretty confident and ticked off. With all 4 of his generals on deck, including Bo and a new guy named Garrett, he sends them off to join the fight. They take off, ready to follow the king's orders. Meanwhile, the humans are just chilling, casually strolling forward despite the Mushroom Army's show of strength. The assassin woman points out that it's her first time seeing a monster this rare and thinks bringing it back to the guild would totally boost their prestige. On the other hand, the girl who's good at hypnotizing monsters is super frustrated that her needle can't pierce Diamond Shroom. She wishes the vice captain would handle it, but the Goldie guy reminds her that if the vice leader had to deal with every problem, they'd all just be side characters. Meanwhile, Diamond Shroom is flexing hard. He tilts his chin up and lets his sunglasses slide down in a dramatic fashion, showing off his eyebrows with some serious style. He looks like a cultured mushroom. Then, with a dramatic flare, he opens his eyes and fires a laser from them. The beam turns into a dazzling gemstone light and heads straight for the heroes. Don't underestimate the Goldie guy either. Using his ability, known as Vanguard, he produces such a blinding light that it covers all of his friends. The big hootered goddess joins in, casting a defensive spell with her divine powers. As the 2 lasers come their way, Goldie takes one head-on, while the goddess blocks the other. The scattering light hits the nearby debris and it quickly turns into crystals. Not just the debris, but other rocks in the area also transform into shimmering crystal stones. The gunslinger cracks a smile, thinking about how rich they could get with all these crystals. While my mushroom fella is going absolutely bonkers with his laser throwing, the goddess is trying its best to concentrate as much as possible, while the Goldie is also struggling as well. Eventually, the Goldie guy's barriers start cracking, and his hands turn into crystal. Fortunately for the blondie, the laser from Diamond Shroom fizzles out, but he just keeps being cool, adjusting his sunglasses back over his eyes and soaking up the sunlight with style. Meanwhile, the rest of the crew isn't as chill. Especially Goldie, who nearly got everyone killed even with Marianne's help, whom we also call a big hooter goddess, even though she is just a human. The Beastmaster then points out his hands, which have been turned into diamonds. In response, he states that he has tried exerting force, but he still can't let himself lose from these diamonds. That's when the big-boobed goddess steps up. She grows a pair of angel wings and gives the crystals a kiss. The crystals melt away like magic, thanks to her hotness. The assassin woman has now no doubts why the goddess is sometimes considered an S-rank combatant. Goldie finally stands up and starts his gratitude spree, but the gunslinger quickly interrupts, saying they should save the thanks for later and focus on collecting all the loot first. Just then, a bullet flies at them, and Goldie swings his sword to demolish it mid-air. The group quickly goes on high alert, unable to pinpoint the enemy's location. The gunslinger, with his sharp ears, catches a few voices and shoots at them. His bullets collide with the enemies, causing an explosion in mid-air. The assassin woman then pulls off some slick ninja moves and activates her magic detection. She spots 3 mushroom generals hiding and warns her team that the enemies are using stealth magic and coming from the front. Cage, one of the mushroom generals, uses his mushroom cross slash, but the humans leap into the air and his sword swing slices the ground into perfect pie shapes. Goldie tells everyone to each take on one of the mushroom generals, and the team nods in agreement, ready for the challenge. Meanwhile, the mushroom generals aren't exactly just twiddling their thumbs. Thin Mustaches gives his buddies a shout to spread out and block the humans' advance. He's not about to let them waltz up to the king. The assassin woman Nia, down on her knees, starts scanning the area, only to spot Cage looming right behind her. She spins around and tries to attack with lightning speed, kicking off a wild back and forth of blows. Thin Mustache sparks a mid-fight chit-chat by asking why in the hell humans are so hell-bent on invading others' territory. He then overpowers her with a mighty push, sending her sliding backwards. Her body's all cut up and bruised like she's been through a blender. But of course, the big headlight goddess isn't about to let her friend stay down. With a wave of her hand, she heals the assassin woman's battle scars. Nia gives her a grateful nod and gets back into her fighting stance, ready to dive back into the chaos. But our mushroom buddy just ignores her, and quickly heads for the goddess to take her down. Nia, not backing down, throws her shiny blades right back at our general. He reacts fast, slicing them into pieces with a single swing of his sword. Yet, one blade is still on its way. That's when Nia sneaks up on him, and their exchange of blows starts up again. Meanwhile, our poor general is also in the crosshairs of a gunslinger. As the gunslinger takes aim, we catch sight of Bo, who's lurking behind him with her gun pointed right at his head, pulls the trigger. The shot hits the sniper right over the head, but it's just a foggy decoy. Bo quickly spots bullets coming from behind, leaps into action, and starts firing her guns, causing the bullets to collide and explode in midair. The gunslinger gives her props for her godly reflexes, and the lady just slides backward like she's in a slow-motion movie scene. Then she goes wild with her guns, blasting a crazy barrage of bullets at him. She's moving so fast she's practically a blur. The gunslinger, grinning ear to ear, says he can totally see the path of every bullet she sends his way. But to his surprise, her bullets are different this time. They cut right through his bullets and keep going, leaving him totally baffled. He just barely dodges one by a hair's breadth, but not without losing his glasses and getting a bruise on his cheek. The woman smirks and tosses another wave of bullets in his direction, teasing him about having a skill issue, and the bullets head straight for him with no mercy. Looks like he took her words to heart because he is about to pull out his trump card. His gun morphs into a 6-barreled machine gun, and he starts laughing maniacally. He unleashes a barrage of bullets of his own, determined to show her what he's got. We're back with our golden guy, and he asks the big hooter priestess for help once again. The woman nods and dives into her system menu, dishing out a ton of buffs all at once. But hold up, her plans are about to hit a snag. The old man is floating right above her head, and he's not being subtle about it. He tries to use some sneaky mushroom magic from his hidden spot, but he just barely dodges a beastly claw swipe aimed right at him. Turns out, this Beastmaster girl's sense of smell is so sharp she doesn't even need to see the old man to take him down. She can clearly sniff out the nasty stench of a dirty old mushroom, and tells him his little tricks aren't enough to keep him hidden, and she spots him floating there without a hitch. The old mushroom finally comes out of hiding, and he appears to be curious about the monster she's got stashed in her bag. He strikes a pose, slams his wand into the ground, and outbursts a giant root. This isn't just any root, it's the Shroom of War, and the old man's itching to see if her little scaredy beast can handle his new pet. The Shroom of War quickly scoops up some slimy goo and launches it through its grotesque face right at the lady. She's quick on the draw, telling her beast it's chow time. As expected, her beast pops out of her bag with its menacing look and gobbles up that gooey mess without a second thought. Once it's had its fill, it retreats back into the bag like a loyal dog. But then, the old man drops the bombshell. That slimy goo was toxic waste from his monster, and it's going to seriously mess up her beast. And sure enough, her beast starts going wild inside the pouch, and it's clear the poor thing just had its last burp. The old man's all smiles, eager to see how she's going to handle the fight without her pet in the mix. Well, looks like this lady is not without her surprises, because her beast charges back into action, and even the old man's baffled by how this is happening. He scrambles to put up a shield, trying to save his sorry self. But the old man's in deep trouble now. His shield starts to crack and shatter, and no matter how hard he tries, he's struggling to hold it together. Eventually, he has to pull back, utterly clueless how he got overpowered. The shield crumbles into dust, hitting the old mushroom right where it hurts and sending him flying backward. The girl can't resist teasing him, saying her gray was raised on her guild leader's poison, so a bit of crummy mushroom poison is nothing compared to what her guild leader used to feed it. Back with the blondie, his shield starts cracking, his muscles bulge, and his armor and clothes tear to shreds. His sword begins to glow with golden energy, and it looks like he's ready to take down one of the coolest mushrooms around. Meanwhile, the old mushroom finds himself standing between this epic mushroom. The golden guy gets all cocky, grinning like he's about to take them both out in one mighty swing. He readies his sword, channels its energy, and starts spinning it around and throws it straight toward the diamond mushroom. The sword soars through the air, and it's so fast it's cracking the ground beneath from the sheer pressure. Just as the sword is mere centimeters from the old man's face, it suddenly gets flung away and crashes to the ground nearby. And that is when the king enters the scene, absolutely fuming at these amateurs. But the golden boy just smirks, calls his sword back, and it zips right back into his hand. Goldie gives a nod to the king's strength, saying that blocking his guru's sword isn't exactly a walk in the park. But he just brushes off the king as an overgrown mushroom, ready for the grill. Meanwhile, we're back with the assassin and the thin mustache duking it out. After another intense round, it turns out this was her 93rd fight, and she still came up short. Her hand's all bruised, but it gets healed up again thanks to the priestess backing her up. She's ready to go toe-to-toe with this mushroom for 1,000 rounds if needed. The mushroom guy charges at her once more, throwing a mushroom cross slash that slices through her with deadly accuracy. Even though her body's made of stone, it can't handle the hit. The cut starts spreading, and it's clear that the priestess was the one who gave her stone skin blessing. The assassin lady is in disbelief, wondering how this could even be happening. As the cut opens up further, blood starts gushing out of her. It's not just her. The big hooter lady starts coughing up blood too, clearly messed up from the same attack. The cocky assassin woman crashes to the ground, blood still leaking from her chest. Meanwhile, the thin mustache guy adjusts his hat with dramatic flair and says, "The survival rate for anyone attacking the Mushroom Kingdom is 0%. And I mean it." Over on the other side, the gunslinger's going absolutely bonkers with his new bad boy, raining bullets down relentlessly. Seeing the onslaught, she quickly puts her gun away, grabs some of her hair, and rounds it up. With a round pipe, she blows a ball of her hair straight at the bullets. Her hair spreads out like a fungal net, blocking every single bullet without letting a single one through. But the man down there keeps firing away, showing no concern whatsoever. Once her net has caught a bunch of bullets, it turns into a big round ball. The arrogant guy mocks her, saying running is futile for her. But she reappears right behind the net. The man quickly starts firing again, but she vanishes from her spot. His ears catch some shady noises behind him, so he flips his giant gun back to its former state and starts shooting relentlessly. The bullets of both collide in midair, creating a chaotic mess. The lady gives him props for his quick reflexes, saying she thought she had him nailed, but he's surprisingly fast for a human. The gunslinger takes this as a chance to get back at her, saying she's the one with the skill issue here, not him. That's when she decides to get serious. She lights up her cigar and tells him that as a pro gunner, relying solely on powerful bullets and rate of fire isn't enough, and reminds him that paying attention to the enemy's actions is equally important. The gunslinger doesn't bother with what she's saying and just aims his gun at her again. She tells him to watch his feet, and when he looks down, he sees these plants popping up that oddly look like cameras. The cocky gunslinger just laughs them off as dumb little things, but those dumb plants surprise him when they snap their shutters. A blinding flash goes off, and it feels like his eyes are getting jabbed with needles. He staggers back, trying to get some distance. Even with his messed up eyesight, he can still hear her yapping. But things get even wilder when some party mushrooms start blasting loud music, totally messing with his hearing. Now, he's lost track of her completely. While she's still trying to teach him how to pay attention 101, the guy starts cursing her out and tries to jump away to escape. But he accidentally steps on a little mushroom, which instantly grows into a giant mushroom as soon as his foot hits it. Next thing he knows, he's flying through the air. And it's not just one mushroom, tons of them pop up out of nowhere, sending him bouncing around. Looks like she had this all planned from the start. Even without using her gun, she's managed to take down the cocky gunslinger who thought he was on top of the world. As his sight starts coming back, he tries to stay calm and focus on where she is, knowing he only has one chance to hit her. But it's tough to keep his cool after being toyed with and tossed around like trash. But then he spots some mushrooms that look way angrier than he could ever be. The steam inside these mushrooms starts bubbling up, and they finally explode with a smoky fire, sending him flying through the air like a sack of potatoes. He's getting blasted by these exploding mushrooms one after another, taking a free ride he definitely didn't sign up for. It's another lesson on how seemingly random fungi can be seriously dangerous. After being tossed all over the field, he finally lands back near her. That's when some sticky mushrooms start crawling up to him. Before he can get himself into even more trouble, he summons his gun. But as soon as he tries to pull the trigger, his finger gets stuck in the gooey mess. Meanwhile, the woman is just puffing away on her cigar, taking one drag after another. The more he tries to move, the more stuck he gets in the sticky goo. And the little critters responsible for this mess are just laughing their heads off to see this grown-ass struggling. Finally, she strolls over to him, and for some reason, her feet aren't getting stuck in the goo. When she's right above him, she makes it clear that there are over 40,000 types of mushrooms here, and none of them should be underestimated. She pulls out her bad boy, aims it at his head, and as he stares down the barrel, she tells him that unlike mushrooms, humans only come in one type. And that type is so gross, she just wants to puke. With that, she pulls the trigger, blowing a huge hole in his head and scattering his brains like confetti. By the way, our protagonist is still on the sidelines, watching all the action unfold. He's absolutely blown away by their sheer power and wonders if evolving would make him as strong as them. And let's not forget the king. His subordinates are just on a whole nother level. Now you can imagine what kind of terrifying powers the Mushroom King must be having under his belt. We then also see this mysterious shadow thing hovering in the distance, and Wazi is trying to wake his buddy up, saying things are about to get real because the guy heading toward the king is literally a monster. Meanwhile, the king is gearing up to face the cocky Goldie, who's really full of himself and mocking the mushroom race. He cracks his neck, pumps up his muscles, and as his heart beats faster and faster, he grows bigger and bigger. Vines all over his body seem like they're about to burst out. With his final buff, the war general's battle spirit, a flash of light strikes him. And when the dust settles, he emerges as a massive, muscular giant with a tiny head. Even with all these buffs, he's still not as tall as the annoyed king, who's ready to kick some serious ass. The big guy wonders why the Mushroom King didn't attack while he was transforming, thinking it was a perfect chance for a strike. But then he just laughs it off, saying he wouldn't consider it an honor if a monster was showing him up. The king gets even more annoyed, and then, out of nowhere, they both vanish and start trading blows. No matter how fast the king swings, Goldie keeps deflecting every attack. Goldie slashes with his sword, but the king dodges, and the attack hits the diamond mushroom right in the face. Even with that hit, our cool guy remains cool as a cucumber, and only loses 1 HP in the process. Goldie keeps on attacking, trying to land a blow on the king, but the king's not letting any attack get through. His sharp blade wriggles and wiggles, deflecting every strike. Goldie swings his sword again with a wicked grin, and a huge flash of light blasts through the area, shattering the ground into pieces. The cocky guy is loving every second of this fight, practically begging the king to attack faster. Their moves are so fast that all you can see are silhouettes trailing behind them. As they keep trading blows, lightning slashes shoot off in all directions. One of these stray slashes heads straight for our buddy. Just as it's about to slice him in half, he jumps out of the way, and they both roll across the ground and finally come to a stop. He dodged the strike, but it was close enough to give him a mini heart attack. Suddenly, he gets this overwhelming sense of dread, and his system window starts flashing wildly, screaming at him that an emergency mission has been triggered. Meanwhile, the humongous guy is going absolutely berserk against the king. They seem to be evenly matched, or maybe the king is just holding back. It's hard to say. On the other side, the old mushroom is still getting his butt handed to him by the beast tamer woman. He's putting in his best effort, but the monster in her pouch just won't quit. The girl throws a cheeky remark at the old man, saying, "I like eating mushrooms, but I draw the line at ones that stink like farts." She's giving it her all to take him down, but the old man keeps dodging left and right with those purple shades of his, doing his best to stay out of trouble. The old man quickly gathers this nasty, shit-like stuff onto the tip of his wand and throws it at the monster. It's a poisonous mushroom ball, but it doesn't even tickle the beast, let alone damage it, because the thing is immune to magic. The beast tamer just laughs it off and tells her beast to block the attack. While she sticks her tongue out playfully, the old man is getting more and more frustrated, realizing that all his magic has been useless against this beast so far. She glances around and notices that Goldie is still in the fight, but her 3 other companions are nowhere to be seen. Deciding it's time to get serious, she orders her monster to come out of the pouch. But the monster demands a dragon bone to come out, and the girl just loses it. She gives the beast a scolding, and, with a huff, her not-so-cute puppy reluctantly starts popping out of the pouch. Meanwhile, the king and Goldie are still going at it. The big guy is puzzled because, according to the reports, the Mushroom King was only supposed to be level 60 at most. You see, with the priestess's buffs, coupled with his own abilities, his stats have shot through the roof. But still, Goldie can't seem to land a hit, making it look like the king might be holding back. The king then smugly taunts this weakling Goldie to come at him, and the big guy takes the bait, becoming absolutely infuriated. He quickly activates his Ignite Battle Spirit ability and leaps into the air. With his hands crackling with raw power, he grips his sword tightly, while his face is a mix of rage and frustration. Meanwhile, the king starts vibrating his pointy sword so fast it begins to spin like a top. Just as Goldie's colossal blow is about to land, the king casually stops it with just the tip of his needle-like sword. Despite the gorilla's best efforts and his ranting about having absolute power, the king's calm response makes Goldie's face go pale as he realizes he's completely outmatched. With a flick of the king's sword, he is flung backward like he's nothing. He tumbles across the ground until he crashes into the diamond shroom, and upon impact he coughs up a torrent of blood. After the king's final strike, Goldie is left sweating and trembling, unable to believe how easily he was defeated. He's left wondering if he really was just up against a level 60 mushroom that's simply oversized. The king leaps into the air for his finishing move. Determination sparks in Goldie's eyes once again, and he tries to activate his defensive ability, but it's no use. The aftermath is a gruesome splatter of blood, leaving onlookers in shock. Even the usually cool-as-a-cucumber mushroom has a huh moment, because let's face it, he also ended up getting some damage from the king's last attack. As for Goldie, he's in rough shape. He's lost one of his hands along with his sword and is coughing up a ton of blood. Gorilla's once bulging muscles start to deflate as he bleeds out. Before he's fully gone, the king hovers above him like the Grim Reaper. Goldie, still trying to keep up his cocky act, tells the king to just finish him off. But the king just stands there, making this fully grown man's eyes fill with tears as he realizes he's been toyed with. Finally, with a final gasp, Goldie hits the ground. The Beastmaster lady is furious seeing her subordinate drop dead and promises her monster a dragon bone if it comes out of the pouch. The monster gets happy to hear this, and flashes a creepy grin before fully popping out. Not wanting to let things get any worse, the old mushroom decides to take action. He starts gathering poison into a massive, gooey ball. Once it's big enough, he throws it right at the Beastmaster Lady, or whatever the hell her name is. While the Beastmaster Lady stands there, stunned and unsure of what to do, the giant poison bomb explodes right in her face. But, as expected, her loyal pup swoops in to save the day, shielding her from the poison. Looks like the old man is paired with the worst possible opponent. Being a poison mage, he's utterly powerless against her. Finally, we get our first full look at this monster. It reassures its master with a gentle nudge, then carefully sets her down on the ground, ready to continue the fight. While the beast is busy catching up, the mage quickly puts up a shield and leaps toward the monster using his mushroom bash. But as the beast turns around, the old man is met with a solid punch right in the face and gets sent crashing into a nearby rock. The monster resumes paying respects to his lady, assuring her that he'll handle this guy alone. With a confident grin, he vanishes and reappears right next to the king. Just as this wild beast is about to land a filthy kick on the king reacts with lightning speed. He swings his sword with a thunderous force, and the ground beneath them is instantly demolished. The beast's kick lands, sending shockwaves through the terrain, but the king has vanished into the underground. The ground shatters into debris, and the beast lets out a menacing growl, ready for whatever comes next. As usual, our protagonist is sweating like a waterfall, completely stunned by the beast's raw power and brutality. After ripping a massive hole in the ground, the beast goes to town with a barrage of punches. Just then, 2 more mushroom generals show up, itching for a fight. But the beast, totally unfazed, grabs one general's sword and catches the other's bullets bare-handed. The beast, with a cocky grin, asks who these stinky birds are trying to sneak up on him. Thin Mustache steps up, saying they're here to take him down. The gunslinger woman also pipes in, wanting payback for her friend Locke, one of the 4 great mushroom generals this wild beast took down back in the day. Just then, the goddess shows up, bringing the dead friends along for the ride. She offers to support her in the battle, but the beast tamer girl just shakes her head, because she's confident her beast got this covered all on its own. Meanwhile, the beast just sneers, saying he's squashed so many flies he's lost count, and the beast has no clue what general she is talking about. As the tiny mushrooms keep up their relentless attacks, the beast starts vanishing into thin air, dodging bullets and sword slashes like they're a joke. Before anyone can figure out where he went, the gunslinger woman gets smacked hard and crashes into the ground, making it shatter like glass. The beast reappears behind Cage, ready to deliver a crushing punch. Thin Mustache, however, manages a quick sword slash, sending the beast sliding backward. The hit was strong, but it only grazed the beast's arm, hardly a scratch on this monster. The 3 generals line up, ready to handle the situation. The magician quickly activates his magic detection spell, flooding the area with magical energy. He then uses his sense-sharing technique, allowing the other 2 generals to feel everything he's experiencing. This way, as long as they stay within 50 meters, they can track every move the monster makes. But as the monster starts to vanish again, there's no trace left. No sign. No magic signature. The generals are stunned to see this, and the old man's jaw drops as he mutters, "This is bullshit. It's impossible." Meanwhile, the monster is darting around with such speed that not even the magician's sense magic can keep up. The beast's stretching, writhing form is all over the place, a blur of motion. Suddenly, it zeroes in on the gunslinger lady, who reacts with lightning speed, pulling out her weapons and unleashing a hail of bullets. At the same time, the Thin Mustache general is slicing and dicing, trying to land a hit. Our protagonist, still more of a spectator than a player right now, is utterly blown away by the sheer ferocity of this fight. He's struggling to grasp how a wild beast can be this powerful. His system window, meanwhile, is incessantly flashing with emergency mission alerts. But he's too engrossed in the chaos to pay it any mind. He then finally gets frustrated and mutters to the system window, "Seriously, get out of my face. I'm missing all the action thanks to you." The system window keeps flashing in front of him, showing an epic mission alert. It announces that he's spotted a demon god golem's follower, and if he defeats it, he'll score a revival coin, a lottery, and a truckload of experience points. His jaw practically drops to the floor, because those rewards are too good to be true. But as tempting as it is, he's convinced he'd never take down the beast with his current level. He tries to shove the annoying window aside, telling the system to stop being ridiculous because he can't see a thing. Meanwhile, back on the battlefield, Thin Mustache has finally figured out the beast's trick. The monster isn't disappearing, it's just using its monstrous speed and power to zip in and out of the magic detection range. The gunslinger woman is fuming, realizing the beast is just toying with them, holding back its true strength, and she's certain they're no match for this monstrosity. The beast sneers as usual, asking if they're finally realizing just how screwed they are. He looms over them, making it clear that if they want to stop him, they need to up their game, because their puny swords and bullets are no match for him. Then, with a devastating punch right to the mushroom guy's gut and another for the lady, he sends them flying like ragdolls. He calls them trash with a broad grin, reminding them that this is what the power of the former king of monsters looks like. The two of them tumble backward and finally come to a stop, looking completely defeated. The girl even thinks about retreating, because this thing is way out of their league. Meanwhile, a creepy, Reaper-like ghost figure hovers behind them, and they probably have no clue about it. Even Wazi, watching from the sidelines, wonders why they aren't reacting to the shadowy figure. It dawns on him that this must be the demon god's golem follower the system mentioned. Wazi quickly tries to use his appraisal skill on the mysterious figure, but it's a no-go. An error message flashes up, and he gets nothing. He's used to his appraisal failing due to his low level, but he's never seen an error message before. He then gets freaked out when he notices the mysterious figure suddenly glance in his direction. Panic sets in as he realizes it's probably looking right at him. Before he can react, the figure vanishes and reappears right in front of him. Mushroom Guy starts sweating buckets, clearly terrified as this thing seems to be staring straight into his soul. Wazi then looks at the piggy friend and notices it's not reacting at all, which makes it painfully clear that Piggy can't see this figure either. The thing starts to transform, growing a sharp blade made of black energy. It moves the blade closer and closer to Wazi, who's doing his absolute best to keep from flinching. He's determined not to let this monster know he can see it. The blade is just a hair's breadth away from his head, and he's debating whether to make a move or stay put. Then he decides to go with a different tactic. He relaxes his tense muscles and starts acting like a total idiot. He begins making goofy pon-pon noises, playing the part of a dumb mushroom. It seems like even the shadowy figure is fooled, not having a clue about what this goofy mushroom is up to. Wazi rolls back from his spot in a playful manner, and Piggy perks up, excited to see his friend rolling around. The little guy starts chasing Wazi and quickly stands in his way, eager to join in the fun. Wazi figures if Piggy starts playing along, it'll make his act as a dumb mushroom even more convincing. Piggy seems clueless about Wazi's real intentions, but Wazi keeps whispering, trying to get him to push him into the forest away from the cliff. Piggy catches on and starts pushing, but, hilariously, he's pushing Wazi in the completely wrong direction. Despite Wazi's attempts to correct him, Piggy keeps shoving him along. Wazi finds himself right back in front of the shadowy figure, and at this point, he's so terrified he can't even muster those goofy pon-pon noises. Meanwhile, Piggy continues to play with him, happily licking Wazi's body left and right. The shadow finally turns away and floats off, but not before pulling out a bell-like object and ringing it, and the sound ripples through the area, spreading an eerie resonance. Back at the hole where the king had vanished, we zoom in to see two blazing eyes staring out from the darkness. Meanwhile, the generals are still being hammered by the monster like pizza dough. They're staggering backward, coughing up blood, barely able to hold themselves together. Just when they think they might catch a break, an endless barrage of punches comes their way. The mushroom guy tries to fend them off, slashing his sword desperately against the incoming blows. It's clear he's struggling to keep up, barely managing to deflect the relentless onslaught. The monster starts strolling forward, or at least that's what the mushroom guy thinks he's seeing. Even though it looks like the monster's moving slowly, its punches are coming so fast they're practically blur. It's like trying to follow a speeding train with your eyes. It's just impossible. And the monster is clearly enjoying itself after seeing the confusion over its opponent's face. Bo rips some of her hair off once again and fires them through her gun. Her hair turns into a fungal net mid-air and spreads out towards the monster. But as soon as the net gets close, the monster takes a deep breath and blows it away like it's nothing more than a flimsy paper sheet. Bo then tries her flash shrooms to blind the monster. But the monster is totally unfazed, coolly saying his eyes have been blind for a long time. It looks like Bo's out of tricks. As she's scrambling for a new plan, the monster throws another punch. Cage C tries to block it, but ends up taking a hit right to the face, leaving him coughing up blood once more. Before they can catch their breath, another relentless barrage of punches rains down on them. Both guys shut their eyes and brace for the worst, expecting to be obliterated. But then, a loud bang echoes through the area. When they open their eyes, they find the king himself standing before them, taking all the punches directly. His body's been turned into a roasted marshmallow from the assault. Despite looking like a charred mess, the king regains his composure. The beast, having a blast, wonders why the king isn't dead yet. It starts up again, throwing punches and declaring it'll make sure to finish the job this time. The generals urge their majesty to step back and leave the monster to them, but the king stubbornly continues to take the hits. Thin Mustache isn't about to lose his king. Not just because he's the king, but because they've been friends since they were kids. The king tells Cage to back off, but he ignores the order and charges in. But right on cue, he gets shot by his own friend Bo and hits the ground, smoke billowing from his head. Bo then reminds everyone that she'd never go against the king's orders. That's when the mage shows up and says this was bound to happen. Bo, puzzled, asks him what he's talking about. The old man reminds her about the demon god Golem. Bo's face pales as she struggles to believe that all this chaos is connected to the legend. The old man clarifies that it's not just a legend, but a true story. He says anyone who takes in the demon god Golem's power undergoes demonification, gaining a demon king form but losing their rationality, becoming just a pawn. The old man explains that the king has accepted the demon god's power to protect everyone else here. Meanwhile, the wild beast catches a whiff of that funky magical smell he has smelled before in his past. It does not take him long to realize that it's the same creepy power from back when some guy, known as Fenrir, took the throne from him. Instead of reliving those painful memories once again, the beast decides he needs to finish this before the king fully transforms. The mage then turns to Bo and tells her to take care of the king's legacy because the future of the mushrooms will depend on her and Cage. Bo is stunned and asks, "What the heck does that even mean?" But the old man does not bother to respond and hits the ground with its wand. A random flower starts sprouting from the ground with his single command, and its petals quickly envelop both of the generals inside. This flower, known as tunneling fungi, begins burrowing back into the earth, along with the duo. Once Bo is out of the picture, the mage decides to join the king, ready to face whatever comes next, even if it means dying alongside him. He's served 3 generations of Mushroom Kings and feels honored to accompany his king to the end. The king's mushroom form looks even more bizarre now, and the beast knows that if he doesn't act fast, things are about to get really intense. He takes his stance and starts channeling all his power into one final punch. Meanwhile, the king is falling apart, with chunks of his body oozing out these lump of fats. Once his fist is completely charged, the beast finally unleashes his colossal Tyrant King fist and obliterates everything in the surrounding area. The impact is so massive that the air pressure from the punch sends shock waves for miles. As the dust clears, the mage is still alive, which is good. The beast, however, catches a whiff of that creepy magical smell again and realizes the power is actually getting stronger. It's now clear to him, the king has fully transformed into his final demonic form, the fallen Mushroom King. The king stretches his tentacles all around, absorbing all the mushrooms in the area. He even grabs the mage, who, despite the grim fate, is willing to become part of the king. And once he is absorbed into the king, nothing is left of the poor guy, and his creepy wand just falls back to the ground. The king's giant head begins to expand, and he starts crawling toward the wild beast. The monster remains nonchalant about this threat and tries to kick the king as if it were just an annoying bug. He's sure this is the same disgusting and malicious magic as before, but it's even more powerful than Fenrir's and much slower. He is confident that he can rip this thing into shreds with his unmatchable speed. The beast starts throwing punches from all directions, moving so fast he's nothing but a blur. The monster then slams his hands together and charges at the fallen Mushroom King with lightning speed, trying to pierce him. But the king quickly turns around, takes a deep breath, and after sucking all the air from the area, he releases spores from his body as part of his demonic power. Realizing the threat, the beast quickly stops himself from what he was about to do and leaps back by using the king's head as a stepping stone to escape the mist. He grins like a maniac, claiming that his fur has got both magic and poison resistance. As long as he keeps his eyes and nose shut, the spores won't do a thing to him. Seems like he spoke too soon. The mist starts affecting his hands, and his HP begins to drop rapidly. To stop the disease from spreading further, he bites his hand and rips it off, and the severed hand on the ground quickly becomes a nest for millions of fungi. But the problems aren't over yet. The fungi crawl up his arm, covering it entirely. He rips off his whole arm in desperation, but the fungi have already spread to his shoulder, neck, and face. Soon, his face is completely covered with mushrooms, and his HP continues to plummet. His entire body is now covered in the fungal mess, making it nearly impossible for him to move. The beast tamer woman starts bawling her eyes out as she sees her monster dying. She rushes back to him, while the once cocky beast begs to be saved. She quickly opens her pouch, and the beast hops back inside. She reassures him, saying she's sure the guild leader will help get rid of the nasty fungi once they get back. But it looks like the wild dog isn't going to make it to the guild in time. It starts suffering even inside her pouch, which goes absolutely wild as the monster thrashes around in pain. Her mana points plummet rapidly, and soon the bag explodes, sending the suffering beast tumbling out. The poor guy looks completely wrecked, and the girl is also devastated, cries her eyes out, and eventually gets unconscious once her mana has been completely exhausted. Just as she hits the ground, a familiar teleportation bubble grabs her and whisks her away, disappearing into thin air. Seeing they can't take down the fallen king, the priestess decides it's time to retreat with her injured friends. The fallen king, noticing her escape, throws out his root-like tentacles to grab her. She speeds up her ascent, barely dodging the tentacles. Just as they're about to catch her, someone roasts those tentacles with a blast of fire, giving everyone enough time to scramble back to the flying ship. Turns out the fire mage and vice leader, Gilheim, is the one taking care of the situation. He casually mentions that he's got this from here. The priestess tries to argue, but he cuts her off and tells her to follow orders. Reluctantly, she shuts up. When Gilheim and the mutated king lock eyes, the king starts sucking in air again. Once he's got enough, he throws a bunch of Demon King's spores at Gilheim. But as soon as these spore-like balls hit that fiery shield, they're incinerated on the spot. The fallen king gets seriously annoyed after seeing his spores get roasted, so he switches his focus to one of the nearby mushrooms. With a flick of his tentacles, he grabs the closest diamond mushroom and yanks it out of the ground. The diamond mushroom, huge and heavy, gets flung at the vice president like it's a toy. Gilheim just stands there while a massive mushroom sails through the air, coming directly at him. Meanwhile, we see Wazi is also watching this terrifying sight, and blurts out, "Holy shit," at the sheer power of the king, who tossed that gigantic mushroom like it was nothing more than a plastic ball. The shadow quickly turns its attention toward Wazi after hearing his outburst. The poor mushroom starts sweating bullets, realizing he just spoke out loud in front of the shadow. He scrambles to act like a dumb mushroom again and starts making goofy pon-pon noises. Fortunately, the shadow seems to ignore him and shifts its focus again to the battle ahead. Back in the sky, as the cool mushroom is drifting up, the vice leader quickly summons his familiar. A devilish little lady wakes up from her slumber, grumbling about being summoned so suddenly. Before she can finish her yawning and complaining, the vice president throws her toward the crystal mushroom. The little devil quickly steadies herself in midair and summons her fiery power to roast the incoming mushroom. As the heat intensifies around the crystal mushroom, the vice leader utters the word incinerate, and the scorching flames engulf the mushroom, turning it to ash. The only thing left is its two glowing eyes. The system reveals that these diamond mushroom eyes are a rare crafting material with a SSS rarity. Weapons crafted from these eyes will be 1,000,000 times stronger than anything made from other materials. Well, press F for our cool shroom guy. As cool as he might have been, he had it the worst. Meanwhile, that fiery little lady is giving the vice captain a taste of her rage, calling him a stupid male. But before she can get too comfortable, he snaps his fingers and she vanishes again. He grumbles about how his trump card is powerful, but just as annoying. Just as he's complaining, something pops up behind him. The scene shifts to reveal the Mushroom King menacingly standing behind the vice captain. It wastes no time lunging at him and opens up its second mouth to swallow that fireboy in one swoop, crashing back down to the ground with a thunderous impact after snagging its prey. But then, smoke starts billowing from the mushroom's body, and it begins to swell with a screeching heat and pressure. Shortly after, the body swells even more, like it's ready to burst any second. And burst it does! The king explodes and is scattered into pieces, showering the area with its remnants. In the middle of this scorching heat, that flame boy also comes into view after having a wild view of the king's belly. He quickly snags the falling crown of the king, even as the innards of the Mushroom King are still on fire. The vice captain looks embarrassed, realizing he had to use his trump card against a mere level 60 monster. At least he is relieved that no one saw him use it. With the crown in hand, he begins his ascent back to his ship, and also decides to torch the entire place to erase any trace of the battle. With a single hand gesture, meteor-like fireballs start raining down. Our mushroom fella is sweating profusely, partly from terror and partly from intense heat, especially after watching the king explode like a watermelon. Once everything is reduced to ashes, the shadow near our duo lets out a disappointed sigh, then twirls around and vanishes like a good little ghost. Wazi quickly tries to wake his little piggy buddy from its slumber because it's finally time to run. But by the time the piggy friend wakes up, those meteors are already on their way, ready to demolish the entire world. They run as fast as they can, but Wazi's fat butt is seriously slowing him down. As soon as a meteor hits the ground, they both tumble from the shockwave. Wazi is now pretty sure they're screwed, thinking there's no way to escape these massive meteors raining down all over the Mushroom Kingdom. But the pig quickly starts pinching our hopeless hero, trying to snap him out of his despair. The pig starts digging frantically, and they both dive into the hole just in time. The meteors continue to wreak havoc, making the place look like a scene from the dinosaur extinction. As we take a bird's-eye view, we see the entire kingdom turn to ashes. Everything, literally everything, incinerated into nothingness. In this pile of ash and dust, we notice some movement, and out pop two dirt balls. Those dirt balls quickly start breaking apart, and out pop our duo, feeling totally cooked, like they just spent too long in a microwave. Just as they're lying there, dazed and confused, a system notification flashes, announcing that Mission 2, which was to reach the Mushroom Kingdom, has been completed. They've snagged a good chunk of experience points, plus an extra 600 for reaching the core area. Both of them quickly level up, probably from that treasure trove of experience points. Wazi is absolutely shocked to see that everything's been reduced to dust and rubble. What's even more depressing is that one person managed to do all this. Suddenly, the piggy's belly starts growling louder than a chainsaw, and it starts poking its friend for food. Meanwhile, Wazi realizes that the Mushroom King wasn't weak at all. Those humans were just way too strong. In the process of digging, Wazi accidentally flings his poor, hungry friend aside. As he thinks about their situation, Wazi starts trembling, realizing that even if he became the Mushroom King, he'd still be a weak ass compared to those stronger humans. Suddenly, a system notification flashes, announcing the third medium difficulty mission. Find a method to evolve in the Mushroom Kingdom and advance to the next stage. There are usual experience points as rewards and some other special stuff, but Wazi quickly declines the mission. In fact, he declares that he doesn't need missions anymore. He stands up, shaking off the dirt from his heavy butt, and with newfound resolve, he proudly and confidently declares that he doesn't want to evolve anymore. All he wants now is to become a mushroom brave. Meanwhile, in the background, the poor pig is still sulking, probably wondering when he's going to get some delicious grub. The next scene takes us beneath a giant mushroom tree, where that tunneling fungi flower blooms open, revealing our two generals who barely escaped alive, thanks to the mushroom wizard. The man starts coughing, tears streaming down his face as he mourns the loss of their king. He had sworn to serve the king until his dying breath, and now that he's gone, he's left feeling utterly defeated and desperate to go back and fight those filthy humans. Just then, the lady gives him a heated slap to snap him back to reality. After that stinging slap, she tells him to wake the hell up and reminds him that this was the king's wish and we shouldn't waste our lives for nothing. But the man continues to cry, lamenting that without the king, he has nothing left to live for. In a fit of frustration, he even throws a punch into the ground. The lady, remaining cool as a cucumber, plops back under the tree and calls him an idiot. While casually igniting her cigar, she tells him she doesn't care if he wants to die, and he's free to do so only after they've completed their mission. She then puts her hand into her pocket and pulls out a small digital crown-like thing, reminding Cage that they must fulfill the king's final order. The system window promptly pops up, displaying the final mission known as the King's Heritage Mushroom. Those who obtain the recognition of the king's heritage will earn the right to be king. Seeing that symbol of recognition, Cage stands confidently, admitting that she is right and their mission is far from over. Back in the green forest, our mushroom fella is surrounded by annoying system windows, all flashing the message that a monster cannot change their class. He's feeling pretty fed up with these constant interruptions. Meanwhile, the poor pig is exhausted from giving this big butt mushroom a piggyback ride, and he is struggling with each step. He annoyingly tells the system window to just show him the damn map of the starter village correctly, instead of pestering him. The map system only gives a rough idea of how to reach the starter village, but he's been walking for over a day now. If the map is right, he should get there by tomorrow. Suddenly, he tells his buddy to stop and informs the system he's just going to the starter village to take a look and isn't planning on changing his class anymore. Finally, the system window disappears, and the piggy starts walking again. The poor little fella is exhausted from all the walking. Meanwhile, Wazi is dead set on finding a way to change his class, so he asks his friend if he wants some power booster since he's got stamina potions tucked inside his ass. But the piggy starts crying from hunger and exhaustion, and this mushroom cap jerk isn't cutting his friend any slack, pushing the little fella to the bone. The next scene takes us to Source Volcano, where lava flows like a wild river and volcanoes erupt like it's a fireworks show gone wrong. Giant burning rocks fly through the air, and poor rabbits are scrambling to avoid getting squashed. When these fiery rocks hit the ground, volcanic crocodiles, known as lavaconda, are quick to chomp down on them like they're the tastiest snacks ever. These croc-snake hybrids munch on molten rocks as their regular diet, and there are loads of them roaming the territory. In the midst of all this chaos, we finally catch sight of a battleship in the air, belonging to those humans who just wreaked havoc on the mushroom world. They've apparently come back to their base, the Eye of the Firebane Guild, smack dab in this hot zone surrounded by molten lava. Surprisingly, the guild is protected by a barrier, keeping those giant rocks from smashing the place to bits. The battleship just casually glides inside that barrier without a hitch, and alarms start blaring throughout the building at the arrival of the guild party. The locals of the guild quickly carry the injured adventurers, while the vice leader strides forward to enter the building. As he steps inside the empty halls, his footsteps echo through the area. A little guy in an oversized coat rushes to greet him, practically bouncing with excitement. This eager green-haired boy is Bayan Hogg, known as the Poison Master and apparently the guild leader here. Bayan quickly greets the vice leader and asks if he nailed the raid. The man reaches into his chest pocket and tosses out the giant king's crown he snagged from the raid, showing off his prize. The little guy grabs the crown and practically bursts into a happy dance. The vice president doesn't waste any time and asks the leader about the reward he promised. Bayun hasn't forgotten, so he puts the crown aside and starts rummaging through his pockets. He pulls out a bottle of medicine he synthesized especially for the vice leader. As he's showing off the bottle, it accidentally slips from his hands and starts to fall. But, in a lucky twist of fate, the bottle lands perfectly in the vice leader's hands. Once the vice leader, Gil-him, has the bottle, he also reveals that he sent all the corpses to the lab just as ordered. Bayun beams with happiness and thanks his friend. As he begins to walk out, he stashes the potion into his digital inventory while the leader continues to sing and celebrate with the giant crown in hand. But then Gil-him stops for a moment and reminds his leader that the Mushroom King had undergone demonification and turned into a demon king, so he asks if that was part of his plan. Bayun just grins devilishly, which clearly tells us that he's hiding something. But in the end, he just beams like a kid and plays dumb, acting like he has no idea what Gil-him is talking about this Demon King stuff. The vice leader remains silent and starts to walk off, saying to call him if he's needed again. As he's walking out, he bumps into the priestess and tells her they should get going since he has the medicine. The priestess stops him and gets somber, saying that so many people died because of the raid. Gil-him takes the blame, saying he was the one who ordered the raid. He reassures the priestess that they will leave, and once he finds a way to get rid of the poison in her body, he'll take care of the ugly stuff too. I'm not entirely sure what they're talking about, but I hope we will find out soon. Meanwhile, we see the eager leader hopping around with his crown and heading through a door that descends into a basement. After what feels like an eternity of descending, he finds himself in the ceiling altar, the heart of the golem. Bayun stands before a flowing pool of lava, quickly tossing the crown into the molten depths. As the crown begins to melt, the lava consumes it and starts to rise, filling the mold of the heart on the wall. A maniacal smile spreads across Bayun's face as the molten lava settles into place, completing another section of the empty heart. He points out that he's already added the cat spirit queen's eyes, and now that Mushroom Crown is done too. Suddenly, that creepy shadow from before appears behind the leader. The maniac is practically floating with joy, thrilled that only one more ingredient is left to complete the entire heart. Once it's done, Golem's powers will be his. Then, the entire place begins to shake like it's having a seizure. The castle trembles like a leaf in the wind, and the lava around it goes haywire. 2 days have passed since then, and we finally catch up with our clueless mushroom and his brave little piggy. This dumbass mushroom is now teasing his friend by showing off food the little pig can't reach, making it run as fast as it can. We also get the rundown that he's been running around for 2 days, trying to avoid these monsters, and the system has completely stopped responding to his calls. But it keeps flashing the same notification, nagging him to complete Mission 3. He can also check his ability panel and inventory through that notification. At first he wanted to use Decompose to absorb all the spoils left from the battle, but that damn fire mage scorched the whole place. All that's left is the corpse of the Werewolf King, and he is just utterly pissed at that trash fire mage. Since there was nothing to decompose, he had to shove those wands into his ass to decompose, which were left by humans and mushrooms in the battle aftermath. But in the end, those wands only gave him a measly 100 experience points. He then tried to absorb the Werewolf King, but the wolf's magic resistance was too high, so he failed. He wasted his decompose attempt and now has to wait another 17 hours for the cooldown to end. He's livid and thoroughly fed up by this absurdity. It's as if the entire universe is trying to troll him. Suddenly he starts to shake. Looks like he has worked his little piggy too hard and hasn't fed it for ages. Finally, the pig collapses from exhaustion. He quickly uses his appraisal skill and is surprised to find that his level 4 appraisal can also help him see other monsters' abilities. However, he notices that the pig's stats seem fine and he has no clue why it suddenly fainted. He tries to wake the pig up while its tummy keeps rumbling, begging for food. But then he gives this little fella another health potion and she quickly opens her eyes. As an apple hovers right before the pig's eyes, it's like she is hypnotized, desperately wanting to grab it to avoid dying of hunger. Seems like he has been making her drink energy potions only, while clearly ignoring the fact that she just wants to have some freaking food. The dumbass just grins at her suffering, thinking she seems fine now. He tells her to hang on for a few more hours and they'll be there. He checks the map again and realizes they're actually very close to the starter village now. It's not far off since they can already see some snails in the distance. Since they're so close to the village, he pulls out a recall scroll from his inventory and quickly activates it, telling it to take them to the starter village. The scroll vanishes from his hand and an enchantment circle appears beneath them. Just as the circle starts to work, it suddenly fizzles out and disappears into thin air. A system window promptly reminds him that monsters can't use recall scrolls. He turns to his piggy friend and asks if she wants another health potion. She responds with a pitiful oink. He tells her to hang on just a bit longer and that they'll sort out her health once they level up. Meanwhile, a group of boars watches them from a distance, their beady eyes fixated on the pig's adorable little behind. After a while, they finally reach the gate and poor piggy is out cold from exhaustion. Wazzy quickly uses his appraisal skill to check out the gate's stats. Apparently, it's a teleportation gate linked to the starter village, put up by one of the 6 braves who sealed the golem. Besides linking the 2 locations, It's also part of a magical formation that teleports people away when they're in critical danger. Wazi falls into deep thought, realizing that this gate explains why the newbies didn't die when he defeated them last time. The gate must have teleported them to safety. Unfortunately, his appraisal skill doesn't tell him when the newbies will come back, so he's stuck waiting here. Just as he's getting comfy, kids start popping out of the gate again, eager to get back to their snail-slaying spree. Looks like the little snails are in for another rough day. A sweet little girl grabs a stone and smashes a snail right on the head, sending its eyes and brain splattering like a gruesome piñata. Meanwhile, a chubby kid thrusts a sharp spear into their shells with all the mercy of a hangry barbarian. The chef cosplayer kid slices another snail into pieces with his sword, and another kid roasts the poor creatures alive like he's prepping them for a barbecue. Seeing this snail massacre, Wazi springs into action, ready to play hero. He rushes forward, determined to save the harmless snails from this brutal onslaught. Wazi quickly lets out a noxious fart, which he calls explosion spore that could make even the bravest nose surrender. The kids start coughing violently, looking like they've just walked into an onion chopping competition. Seizing the opportunity, Wazi appears right behind a boy and swiftly takes down each and every player in the arena. His fart clouds the entire area, leaving the kids incapacitated and probably questioning their life choices. Once he's knocked everyone out, he gains experience points and watches as the kids start to disappear, probably off to reconsider their career in snail hunting. With a serious face, like a baboon on a mission, he angrily declares that he will never let these manic kids harm his little snail friends. He then rushes towards 3 kids and takes them down with a single resounding bang, turning them into dust and earning some experience points. However, the points are still not enough to satisfy him. Noticing more kids coming out of the gate, a sneaky smirk spreads across his face. He's eager to take them all down and rack up some sweet experience points. As soon as the new batch of kids emerges from the gate, they are brutally hit by the weird mushroom monster, who has a rather huge butt for a mushroom. As the kids keep dropping, he keeps accumulating experience points. By the time the second wave of newbies is wiped out, he has earned almost 630 experience points. After wiping out the third wave of newbies, Wazi racks up another 540 experience points. The remaining kids, terrified by the sight of this horrendous mushroom monster in the starter village, scatter in every direction, scrambling to climb anything tall enough to escape his reach. Wazi, however, finds their desperate attempts to flee nothing short of entertaining. He grins maniacally, feeling like the undisputed king of the starter village. The kids think they're safe perched up high, but little do they know about Wazi's secret weapon, his surprisingly bouncy butt. With a mighty leap, Wazi springs into the air, effortlessly reaching the kids who thought they were out of his grasp. By the time he's finished with this fourth wave of newbies, he's earned an additional 720 experience points. As night settles, our duo sets up a bonfire. Wazi offers his friend a bottle of potion, saying she'll feel better once she chugs it down. The girl looks sad and frustrated, turning her head away from the distasteful potion. He asks if she's not really hungry and checks her stats again. He's confused because, despite not drinking any potions today, her HP and SP are still okay. He assumes she must be fine. He gives her a little pat, telling her to rest and she'll be as energetic as a wild horse the next day. But the little piggy cries, clearly bothered by something else. As his friend goes to sleep, Wazi checks his own stats and practically jumps for joy. He's finally at level 18 after an entire day of farming experience points from the newbies. He's sure that if he keeps this up for a few more days, he'll reach level 20 in no time. Wazi decides to hit the hay as well, feeling pretty wiped out. They both start taking a cozy nap under the starry sky. As the little piggy fades into unconsciousness, she begins to imagine her friend as a delicious chunk of meat, drooling all over with eyes sparkling like stars. She tries to take a bite out of him but quickly snaps out of it, shaking her head with a sad face before flopping back to the ground, tummy growling in hunger. Meanwhile, a brown boar with a fiery mane keeps ogling at the little piggy from afar. The next day rolls around, and at first it seems like nobody's showing up. Wazi stretches and gets ready for another day of action, hoping for more XP. Suddenly, he notices some movement, and kids start popping out of the portal. One kid with a green head trembles in fear, saying he's heard rumors about a mushroom monster living here, and they seem pretty anxious, not wanting to get hurt. Suddenly, a cocky voice pipes up from behind, and 3 veteran adventurers step into the place. The one with the giant axe reveals they had been sent to protect the kids by the head because there appears to be a mushroom monster. The one with long hair points out that it's weird to see a mushroom monster here even though the monster waves have stopped. The bald one agrees, saying the Eye of the Firebane Guild destroyed the entire mushroom kingdom and took down its king as well. The yellow-haired one then points out that these critters are probably just strays left behind from a previous wave. He finds it ridiculous that the head even hired a level 40 AR general just to take out a measly mushroom. As they chat about their heroic deeds and how they once challenged the Mushroom King, Our boy watches their every movement from the sidelines. He quickly uses his appraisal skill and gathers information. The first guy is a spearman, level 17. The second is a shield warrior, level 17. The third is an axe warrior, level 23. Wazi is feeling pretty jittery after seeing these powerhouse players. He knows taking them down is not impossible, but dealing with them is definitely going to be a pain in the ass. So, he tries to wake up Piggy because they need to tackle these guys one by one. Unfortunately, it looks like the poor girl has already fainted. Not one to be deterred, the mushroom quickly unleashes his spore explosion, enveloping everyone in a thick mist. The Baldy quickly pipes up, claiming he's heard rumors that mushroom monsters release a spore cloud to obscure vision before they strike. Just as the kid's panicking about what to do, he gets a solid smack right to the face from Wazi. With that, Wazi takes down every single one of those kids in a flash. The remaining three huddle up, watching each other's backs. The Baldy asks if they're not supposed to save these kids, and the yellow-haired guy reminds this idiot that those kids were just bait. The other agrees, saying they'll get a bigger reward if they kill the mushroom monster. The first to feel the sting from our mushroom pal is the Baldy. With just a single push, his brain is left scrambled, and he has been sent staggering backwards. It looks like that single hit is enough to take down the bull-like guy, and the others finally realize they're in serious trouble. Meanwhile, we see our oinky friend, who looks utterly exhausted but is holding her ground despite her rumbling tummy. Eventually, though, her growling belly gets the best of her, and she just plops back down on the ground. That's when Yellowhead starts spinning his axe so fast that all the mist gathers up and clears out the entire area. He runs his tongue over his giant axe, eyeing the ribbon pig with a greedy look. He's pretty sure these creatures could fetch a pretty penny in the market as a delicious delicacy. As he's about to make his move, the guy with the spear charges in, ready to finish off the pig. But as soon as the pointy spear comes at her, Wazi jumps in and slams down on the spear wielder with his head. The man goes down hard, coughing up blood from a single devastating hit. After getting himself totally messed up, the guy pulls out his potion and starts chugging it down as fast as he can. Once he's recovered his health, he quickly stands back up. He tells Piggy to get up because the enemy is about to charge, but he doesn't get any response. Turning around, he asks, "What the hell is wrong with you lately?" The Piggy opens her worn-out eyes, and the first thing she sees is this fat butt. She immediately starts imagining her friend as a delicious piece of meat and, once again, gets hypnotized into the urge to take a bite of her friend. Meanwhile, Yellowhead decides to flex his muscles and take on the mushroom monster alone. He summons one of his potions, prompting the junior to ask about the thing he is holding. The senior, with a smug grin, explains that it's his secret weapon, the Berserker potion. The dude wastes no time gulping down the potion, and within seconds, his veins start bulging like he's about to burst. His muscles swell up, his level skyrockets to 28, and he just keeps getting bigger. Wazi's alarmed, seeing this cocky guy going all out. The guy smirks, saying the potion's effects last about 10 minutes, but should be more than enough to handle this measly mushroom. With his level jumping to 38, he's clearly not messing around. Wazi grits his teeth at this unexpected twist and starts running with his little legs, urging his oinky friend to follow suit. Meanwhile, the pumped-up guy charges at Wazi. He leaps into the air, then crashes down with his axe, demolishing the ground and sending a shockwave that nearly shatters the earth right beneath Wazi's huge butt. Just when it seems like things couldn't get worse, slabs of wall suddenly start appearing around them, trapping them between these massive barriers. With nowhere to run, the cocky guy grins after trapping them down inside the walls and challenges them to try to run. Wazi turns around to see the man standing there, who now asks if Wazi wants to be killed first or if he'd prefer to watch his piggy friend get squashed. Both of them stare with greedy glares, clearly relishing the situation our duo is stuck in. Meanwhile, Piggy is still ogling Wazi, thinking of him as a sweet, delicious chunk of meat ready to be devoured. This time, her craving for meat has completely hijacked her mind. She snorts out of her nostrils like a raging bull, and the next thing we hear is the trembling voices of humans. The wall's trap quickly crumble into rubble, and the long-haired guy is sent flying, spewing an impressive amount of blood. As the dust settles, we see the long-haired guy starting to vanish. The cocky dude who was so full of himself a moment ago is now nothing but a bloody mess on the ground, struggling to comprehend how he lost despite taking that potion. Piggy steps over him, leaving the man spitting out blood once more. She chomps down on his robe, tossing him around like a sack of potatoes. Eventually, she throws him high into the air, and he crashes down into the bushes, finally disappearing as well. Once those hunters are out of the way, the mushroom levels up to 21, and Piggy hits level 20 as well. But that's not the pressing issue right now. Piggy has gone absolutely berserk, and Wazi has no clue what's happening to her. She's sitting there looking like a wild beast, and Wazi is trembling, creeped out by the look in her eyes. He scrambles to open his appraisal skill, hoping that now that it's leveled up, he can finally figure out what's going on. As soon as he checks, he realizes she's in a berserk mode triggered by her starvation. While in berserk mode, she becomes insanely powerful, but continuously loses HP and rationality. He finally understands that stamina points were showing her hunger all along, and that potions can't fix it. Wazi quickly tells her to calm down and promises to find something for her to eat as soon as possible. But it seems like Piggy lost her rationality ages ago. Wazi's pretty sure she's now eyeing him as her next meal, so he bolts out of there, terrified for his life. Piggy's gone full berserk, smashing rocks and knocking down trees like she's on a rampage. Wazi is convinced that if she lands a single hit on him, he'll be toast. To make things worse, she's losing HP, and he has no idea how to stop it. As he runs like a madman, he curses himself for never paying attention to her hunger needs. Just then, he spots a pile of apples conveniently sitting there. Even Wazi, who's not exactly the sharpest tool in the shed, thinks it's a bit suspicious. But with Piggy in her current state, he doesn't have time to ponder. He races toward the apples, and as Piggy leaps at him, he dodges out of the way, and she ends up diving headfirst into the pile of apples. As soon as she dives into that pile of apples, the only thing we hear is the sound of enthusiastic munching. Our clueless mushroom just stands there, watching intently and getting more nervous by the minute as Piggy keeps chomping away. Finally, we see Piggy back to her normal self, happily devouring those tasty apples, and the boy takes a huge sigh of relief. He plops his giant butt down on the green grass and tells his friend to take her time and munch as much as she wants. The little one eagerly agrees and demolishes that big pile of apples like it's nothing. Standing back at the gate, he thinks about his next goal, which is sneaking into the starter village and snagging the secrets of class changing. Just as they're about to walk in, we spot that boar again. This time, it looks like the boar has already taken out a level 40 war general and some other goons. Not sure what's up with this guy, but let's hope we soon find out why he's playing hero. Meanwhile, Wazi's hand trembles in anticipation of entering the starter village. With his current abilities, the humans there are like ants, and he's really looking forward to showing his dominance. But as soon as he heads inside the gate, he's quickly hit by an obstacle. Right on the other side, there's a danger sign staring him down, with fences and warning notes plastered all over the place. As the air whistles around, it slaps a flyer across our boy's face. When he peels it off, he's shocked by what he reads. The report says there have been high-level monsters near the starter village, and newbie braves and civilians are now forbidden from entering the wilds without permission. But that's not all. Wazi is shocked to realize he can understand the written language of this world. Then he just tosses the flyer away, thinking, this must be part of the perks of transmigration. After all, he can understand what the humans are saying and read all those words on the system too. He then steps forward and jumps over the fences. Shortly after, once inside the territory of the people, we see a bunch of folks roaming around, entering and exiting buildings. Everything seems peaceful and serene until we spot a blue bird up in the air. The bird quickly notices the humans and dives down, trying to grab some for lunch. Just as the monster is about to snatch a kid, it gets blown away by spears that pierce and kill it instantly, obliterating it on the spot. Meanwhile, being a monster himself, Wazi is absolutely terrified by all this. Before us stands a starter village sentry, and Wazi finally remembers that villages and towns always have invincible NPC guards. Just as he's plotting how to avoid these guards, he sees his friend happily munching on apples and gets an amazing idea. He pulls a robe over them both and stands on top of the little pig, stirring her by making her chase an apple while he perches atop her. As he's about to walk into the territory of the humans, he's quickly stopped by the knights on guard duty. Wazi freezes, trembling like a leaf, while one of the guards tells him to dispose of the apple properly after eating it, warning him about a fine for littering. Rocking a fake mustache made of Piggy's fur and wearing a robe he stole from the battlegrounds in the Mushroom Kingdom, Wazi feels smug. He can't help but feel proud of himself, thinking his ingenious plan worked like a charm. Once he enters the center of the village, Wazi sees people lining up at a potion stall, thanks to a discount offer. There's also a double-chinned blacksmith hammering away at some sharp swords, and a monster barbecue stall where you can eat all the monsters you want. And, of course, there's a library. Feeling a bit nervous, Wazi heads toward the library, knowing it's his only way to gather some crucial information. As he walks forward, he notices a bunch of kids glued to a quest board. Curious, he steers his apple in that direction to take a look. On the notice board, there are 2 missions posted. The first is your typical chore, collecting snail shells of different colors. The second one, though, is a bit more intense, because they are recruiting level 60 braves to exterminate high-level monsters near the village. That's when Wazi remembers that the Snail Daddy shell was used for the class change. But looking around, it's clear that everyone in the crowd is scared stiff about collecting those snail shells. They're worried they'll miss this year's class change ceremony if they don't get any shells. Apparently, the whole town is spooked because there's a mushroom monster roaming the fields, and nobody wants to risk entering the area. And, well, The cause of this panic is none other than our hero. Wazzy feels quite tense as he sees the village head setting out to hire a level 60 brave specifically to deal with him. A boy from the crowd excitedly announces that the Divine Tree will be releasing special energy for the class-changing ceremony this evening, and he envies those who get to participate. Wazzy's ears perk up to hear this, because this is exactly the kind of opportunity he's looking for. He quickly steers his apple in the other direction and tells his oinky friend to get moving. But of course, Piggy accidentally steps on the robe they're wearing, and Wazzy loses his balance. They both crash to the ground, completely exposed to the nearby people. The dumb mushroom is absolutely terrified to see they've been exposed, while Piggy is just thrilled to finally have that apple she's been chasing. Suddenly, all eyes turn toward them, and they become the center of attention, with everyone watching them. Even though Wazzy's freaking out, everyone surprisingly just turns their attention back and acts like there's nothing unusual about a mushroom monster sprawled on the ground. The kids around start gossiping, wondering who these two pets belong to. One kid pipes up that their owner must be loaded to afford monsters like these, noting that mushroom monsters are getting rare. That's when Wazzy spots other monsters too, like a snail, a candle cat, a horned seal, and a sleepy owl. He's as amazed as he is thrilled. If he's seen as a pet, he might actually get to roam around freely. Just then, Ash from Pokemon strolls by, and our duo eagerly follows him and his Pokemon. Wazzy notices a sign pointing to the village head's place, and decides that's exactly where he wants to go. So, he grabs Piggy and changes direction, racing toward the path leading to the village head's office. Shortly after, Wazzy and Piggy sneak behind a rock, trying to move ahead without drawing too much attention. Climbing up is proving tricky with all the people milling around. Nearby, two boys are chatting about a big sale on potions. The blondie asks his buddy if he's made it to the Penachrome Desert yet, and if he's managed to join a guild or is still flying solo. The brown-haired guy says he's already looking to snag a spot in one of the top guilds, and is pumped about the recruitment event coming up in a few months. As those two keep walking, Wazzy and Piggy follow from behind. The brown-haired kid regrets not becoming a priest, saying he should have gone for that instead of being a beastmaster, since healers are in such high demand these days. The blondie reminds his friend that the strongest beastmaster, Lord Barbaro, is ranked 3rd on the entire Brave Mainland leaderboard. He's only behind the Sword Saint and the Elemental King, basically the legends of legends. They find it wild that even angels and demons have been tamed by Lord Barbaro. So, he tells his friend to aim high. Who knows, maybe one day they'll manage to tame a top-tier monster too. The brown-haired guy nods and adds that angels and demons are so untouchable that even high-level braves can't handle them. He's curious about what kind of level Lord Barbaro must be at to pull that off. The blondie just laughs and says, "Dream big if you want to achieve big." Meanwhile, Wazzy is eavesdropping and finds this whole demon and angel talk pretty fascinating. It's the first time he's heard that such beings even exist in this world, and it's got him thinking. Suddenly, one of the boys points out the village head's house, and they feel nostalgic as they spot people lined up outside. The brown-haired guy explains that today is the class-changing ceremony, so it makes sense that there's a crowd. He reminisces about how, during their own ceremony, there were 10 times more people. A wide smirk spreads across Wazzy's face as he realizes that the secret to class changing is right in front of him. The blondie then mentions to his friend how he seems to be doing great, especially with all those extra pets he has with him. The brownhead facepalms and points out to his friend that he is the one who made some serious progress, especially with that mushroom monster and the rare ribbon pig. The blondie tells his buddy to cut the act, saying he knows he's the one who summoned both the mushroom monster and the ribbon pig. And that is when they finally realize that those two oddballs did not belong to any of them. And before they can notice our duo, Wazzy and Piggy have already vanished, slipping away without a trace, as if they were never there. At last, our duo arrives at the village head's home, blending in with the crowd. They're still rocking those hoodie disguises, trying to stay under the radar. The door creaks open, and out stumbles this scrawny guy with a trembling body, as if he's about to fall apart any second. He immediately apologizes to the kids, saying he accidentally overslept. With a shaky smile, he welcomes them, noting that if they're here after completing their mission, they must be eager to become true brave. This frail figure is Broccoli, the head of the starter village and the so-called Lord of the Snails. The kids bow their heads in respect and greet him warmly. Broccoli, despite his awkward entrance, quickly invites everyone inside. The crowd, eager to get going, streams into the house, excited for what's to come. Just as it's Wazzy's turn to enter, he starts sweating bullets, worried that the old man might spot him. His fears seem to be coming true when Broccoli stops him right in his tracks. But instead of a grand reveal, the old man simply points out that outside food isn't allowed in the house and demands that he hand over the apple. Reluctantly, Wazzy gives up the apple, and the little pig under the robe starts squealing in outrage, shoving the robe in a desperate attempt to reclaim the food. Wazzy, in a frantic effort to keep things under control, yanks her ears and mutters, Just stay still and walk in a straight line, damn it. After Wazi's wobbly ride over his trusted buddy's back, they finally make it to the other side of the corridor, and Wazi's jaw drops in awe as he takes in the sight of the divine tree, standing majestically before him. Surrounding it is a massive library, overflowing with books of all kinds. When Wazi first saw that crummy little house from the outside, he never imagined it would lead to such a majestic interior. The divine tree stood like a grand monument in the center, surrounded by an impressive library that seemed to stretch on forever. As everyone gawks at the grand, intricately carved goddess on the tree, Broccoli, the village head, clears his throat and instructs everyone to place their materials in front of the divine tree. With a gentle but firm reminder, he urges the hesitant crowd to step forward and get the ceremony underway. Broccoli then announces that they should all pray to the divine tree mother. She's the one who will help them unlock their classes based on their talents. Once the ceremony is complete, they can come back the next day to discover what class they've been assigned. All of the participants place their colorful snail shells and other offerings before the divine tree inside this water jar. The divine tree responds almost immediately, its leaves beginning to float gently above the participants, creating an ethereal spectacle that fills the room with shimmering light. The village head spots our boy lagging behind and asks why he's not following the instructions, and grumbles that he won't repeat himself again. But Wazi tells him he doesn't have the snail shells to offer, but can give something way more valuable. The old man gets all huffy and says they're not accepting anything other than shells. Hearing this, Wazi yanks his friend's ribbon, and they start backing away because he doesn't want any trouble with this shady old coot. Suddenly, a system window flashes, stating he's failed the previous mission and a new mission has been issued. Our mushroom guy gets annoyed because he's really not in the mood for dealing with these pesky system prompts right now. Just then, the old man overhears our boy talking and quickly realizes that what he just heard was the monster's tongue. He quickly starts taking steps towards Wazi and states that humans can't hear monsters when they use the monster tongue to speak to each other. So he asks our boy who he actually is. Meanwhile, Wazi is still tangled up with his annoying system prompts, sweating profusely. He asks the old man what the hell he's talking about with all this monster talk. Suddenly, Broccoli vanishes from his spot. Before the mushroom can realize what's happening, Broccoli comes crashing down on him with that wand of his. A blinding light erupts from above, and just as the old man finally comes crashing down with his weird wand, it seems our duo has already disappeared. The system prompt flickers and hints about some penalty space, and it looks like our buddies have been zapped inside the system. As they crash down on these digital slabs, Mushroom looks around only to find an endless space filled with endless digital slabs. Wazi has no clue where the hell he's landed. The last thing he remembers is almost getting busted by that scrawny old man who somehow figured out he's a monster. Then Wazi realizes he's about to get penalized. The system confirms it again, saying he's been constantly avoiding the system missions. Now he has to jump across 10,000 of these slabs, and if he doesn't finish in time, he'll face the ultimate penalty, which is death. The countdown kicks off right away, with just 60 minutes on the clock. As a penalty, he's looking at death, but if he manages to complete the challenge, the only reward is that he'll stay alive. Naturally, the poor guy starts freaking out. He never expected he'd be screwed over like this for missing missions. The system, though, doesn't care to argue. It just wishes him good luck and disappears, leaving him in a total panic. He calls the system a scum and realizes he's got no choice but to jump 10,000 times before time runs out. If his math is right, he's got to leap from 3 slabs per second to make it. Snapping out of his panic, he braces himself as the clock ticks away. With resolve in his eyes, he pushes off the first slab, dashes down 2 more, and lands squarely on the 3rd one. Meanwhile, the pig is just oinking away, left behind on a slab. The mushroom quickly tells his friend to start jumping because there's no time to mess around. But the piggy just runs in circles, looking as innocent and vulnerable as ever. That is when it dawns on him that the piggy can't jump that high. So he takes a leap back, grabs the piggy, and carries him with him across the next slabs. After a few minutes of this, he's utterly exhausted from hauling his heavy friend around. He finally collapses, having only completed around 1,170 slabs, with just about 40 minutes left. In a last-ditch effort, he quickly pulls a potion from his inventory, chugs it down, and once again lets the pig ride on his fluffy head. With renewed energy, he starts launching himself from slab to slab using his mushroom bash. Suddenly, the pig's giant nose gets irritated by the funky air, and it sneezes so hard that our clueless guy loses his balance. They both come crashing down until they hit a slab below. Thanks to this little mishap, he loses 1/3 of his HP. Looking down, he sees there's no visible bottom to this place and feels strangely grateful that he landed on a slab instead of falling endlessly. He scolds the pig, telling it not to sneeze again without a proper warning. The piggy just oinks in happiness, clearly not understanding the gravity of the situation. He chugs down a few more potions and, with the pig once again on his back, starts jumping from slab to slab. He's managed to complete more than 4,000 slabs. He keeps chugging down potions every few minutes, and his ascension continues. After what feels like an eternity of this jumping marathon, he finally completes 9,117 slabs. Now, only one glorified slab remains to be conquered, and he has just 2 minutes left to do it. But that last slab is way up high, and Wazi's starting to have doubts about whether he can even make it. He looks at his piggy buddy and tells him not to move, or they're going to flop this hard. With a final burst of determination, Wazi makes a desperate leap for the last slab. They almost make it, but end up falling back. He tries again, but fails. Tries again, but fails. With only around a minute left, he's already fallen 3 slabs down. He leaps from the second to last slab once again, and this time both of them brace themselves. But as they go for the jump, the pig hops off Wazi's back and tells him to just go on without him. This breaks Wazi's heart and he starts crying, but he eventually makes one final determined jump. Not surprisingly, he finds his way up to that last slab, just in time. He asks the system if the piggy isn't part of the punishment and will stay alive. The system responds that no matter what, once time runs out, the whole place will collapse, and anyone left inside will die. With determination in his eyes, he leaps back to save his friend as well, and when he lands near the pig, she's confused to see him back. He tells her that he is not going anywhere without her, and the pig starts getting agitated, nudging him to leave. He starts crying, telling her to stop, and makes it very clear he's not abandoning her. Seeing him cry with such determination, the piggy perks up, jumps back onto his head, and they both brace themselves. With the piggy holding on tight, he leaps off the slab again, determined to make it this time. Just as they think they're almost there, their momentum stalls, and they start to drop once more. Their screams echo through the place as the countdown hits less than minute. The system quickly reminds him that time is running out. Just as the mushroom thinks he's about to kick the bucket, an idea clicks in his mind. He remembers how those bomb shrooms shot themselves forward. So, he decides to give it a shot. He grabs the pig's legs and, holding on tight, starts to exert force. His rear end blows up in a giant spore explosion, giving him enough momentum to shoot forward like a rocket. He keeps on farting as he soars through the air, leaving a massive trail of gas behind him. With one final explosive push, he makes it to the last slab. He names his new ability Mushroom Jet Stream, and the system promptly congratulates him for a job well done. Once they're finally out, the pig gets all excited to see her friend alive. After they finish catching up, he realizes they're still in the presence of that divine tree. It dawns on him that he's only spent an hour in the penalty space, but it's already nighttime in the outside world. He's pretty relieved that no one is going to bother him now. He decides to move forward and change his class. The little pig, full of admiration, looks at him with wide eyes. She even starts to blush as she daydreams about him as her Prince Charming who rescued her from that digital space like a hero. Lost in her thoughts, she's snapped back to reality when he tells her to just walk forward. The little one oinks happily and starts rushing ahead, eager to keep up. While eyeing those snail shells and remembering how stubborn the old man was about them, he wonders what these shells have to do with becoming a brave. He gets a bright idea and grabs all of the offered shells and dumps them into a giant jar. He offers it up in front of the goddess, then plops down on his big butt and starts praying to the divine mother tree to change his class to brave. Suddenly, the same kind of light starts floating around, but then he realizes nothing's happening. He wonders if he's doing something wrong, so he clears his mind and prays again, but still, nothing. He keeps trying, but after all that effort and no response, he just plops back down to the ground, feeling pretty defeated. The system chimes in again, reminding him that it's impossible for a monster to change its class. The mushroom calls the system stupid and refuses to give up. He's traveled all this way and is convinced there has to be a way. Frustration finally gets the better of him, and he explodes in anger while his piggy friend happily munches on those green bubble things. Wazi tells her to stop eating random junk, but he's shocked when she levels up after eating those things. Curious, he decides to try them himself. After absorbing one of the green particles, he gains 50 experience points. He uses his appraisal skill and discovers that these blobs are condensed magic power, highly concentrated magical energy that resides deep in the earth but can be released through plants, and it can be used for evaluation purposes. That's when Wazi realizes that humans can't directly absorb the energy from the green blobs, so they use the snail shells as a medium to transfer the power. The real secret to class changing isn't the shells themselves, but the condensed magic power they hold. Excited by this discovery, Wazi decides to dive into this endless buffet of power with his piggy pal. They start hopping around, absorbing energy like there's no tomorrow, and soon they're both leveling up significantly. An hour later, Wazi, with his heavy, thick-butt mushroom, is completely out of stamina, despite chugging down potions like crazy. Just running around to eat those blobs is wearing him out. He tells his piggy friend to drink some stamina potions, but the little oinky buddy is as energetic as ever, even without any potions. Wazzy's jaw drops when he sees his piggy friend has leveled up to level 28. It's crazy. And his confidence takes a hit seeing this little animal surpassing him. He's feeling pretty jealous of his piggy friend and just plops down on the ground in frustration. He calls out to his system, which pops up and reminds him as usual that monsters can't undergo class changes. Desperate, he starts rummaging through his inventory but finds nothing useful. Then a system notification flashes up. His decompose ability is ready to use. That's when a wild idea hits him. He decides to do something daring. With a burst of his fart explosion, he leaps into the air and rockets up to the top of the divine tree. He spins majestically in midair and lands right above its head. Meanwhile, the little piggy catches on to what he's about to do and is fuming over his audacious stunt. But the mushroom tells her to relax, promising her to just sit back and watch. Annoyed, the piggy plops back down to the ground. Wazzy then plops his fat butt down on the divine tree's head, apologizes to the deity, and quickly activates his decompose ability. As soon as the decompose ability kicks in, a flurry of system notifications appears, indicating an increase in effectiveness for decomposing biomatter, plant types, and wood types. The energy starts flowing rapidly through his body, trying to enter through his behind. As he absorbs more and more energy, system windows flash warnings about the immense amount of energy being detected and potential unknown changes. But Wazzy remains unhinged and lets out a confident roar and tells the system to absorb it all. His butt keeps soaking up all that sweet power, and the energy radiating from the tree is starting to flow back inside it. All that power is gathering in one place, right under Wazzy's rear. His constant absorption is even causing the tree to wither, but he keeps on gulping down all that juice, even though the system keeps flashing warnings. His little oinky friend feels a bit worried now, but Wazzy isn't stopping. The divine goddess is also starting to dry up as her power is squeezed out of her. Her entire wooden body is withering, looking like it's aging rapidly. With one final push, he consumes all the power, and the system announces that the process is complete. It looks like he's barely holding all that energy inside his tiny butt, and it's about to explode any given moment. Wazzy's doing his best to keep it in check, but Piggy is even more anxious now. Despite his efforts, some of the power starts to burst out, and eventually his butt reaches a breaking point. All that energy erupts with such force that it stings his rear. The energy is so intense it bounces around the area, even zapping poor Piggy. The old man of the place notices the commotion, but just turns over, hugs his waifu pillow, and goes back to sleep. We also spot a giant slab with a snail-like wand on it, which looks like it's the golem's left hand, sealed up tight. For some reason, the unsealing progress is already at 95%, and to finally reach 100%, it requires different color 10 million snail shells. I feel like this is exactly why this crafty old coot is making those kids collect all those snail shells to unlock the golem's power. But right now, our main focus is on the power that just shot out of Wazzy's butt. It blasts through the roof and streaks into the sky like a fallen meteor. Snails from the starter village, boars in the forest, and even the mushroom generals up above all see the light in the sky. The glow is visible from the Castle of Time, the fish in the sunken world, and even a lone mysterious wanderer in the Pentachrome Desert. Wolves and Firebane guild members in the Source Volcano notice it too, and even those creepy black creatures in the Land of the Dead catch sight of it. That night, a shower of beautiful light lights up the entire brave mainland, as if heralding the dawn of a new era. The next morning rolls around, and everything outside the village head's place looks normal. But inside, things are a mess. Wazzy wakes up with blurry eyes, and as soon as he opens them, he sees his system going completely haywire, flashing upgrade alerts like there's no tomorrow. Once the system calms down, it announces that 5 million experience points have been used. It's now waiting for Wazzy to confirm the class change. The system tells him he's all set to become a mushroom brave, and all he has to do is hit the confirm button. Wazzy wakes up with his groggy eyes and realizes he can finally become a brave. Without thinking twice, he slams that accept button. Instantly, his hand turns into a human hand, and his face changes to a human face. He quickly checks between his legs to see if he's really turned human. Yup, there it is. His sweet little mushroom and a pair of balls. His little mushroom buddy gives him a thumbs up, making sure everything's in place. He bursts into a happy dance, but then he notices Piggy is missing. While trying to stand up, his body trembles. After being a mushroom for so long, his new long legs feel a bit weird. Suddenly, his hand falls on the little piggy fella, and he tells him to stop playing around because morning has arrived. But as he further tries to feel the piggy with his hands, he realizes that the jiggliness he's feeling isn't from Piggy. And just as he looks down, he sees a pair of hooters and his nose practically goes haywire, because his mind just can't handle all of the hotness at all. There, lying before him, is Piggy, now rocking a new human form. The mushroom police quickly arrive, censoring the entire scene before anyone can fully appreciate the transformation. Wazzy gives himself a little slaps, and he does not want to consider that the little fell has also transformed into a human after getting zapped by that power. The girl quickly rubs her eyes and wakes up while the mushroom police are still hiding her assets with sensors. Then, Piggy bursts into a joyful moment and hugs Wazzy from behind. Her new soft figure presses against his face, and he nearly faints from the overwhelming sensation. Her hooters are the softest thing he's ever felt, but he quickly pushes her away, saying she's just so cute and innocent, and he can't take advantage of her like that. But Piggy hugs him once more. Suddenly, they hear people muttering about the meteor shower from last night and discussing the huge commotion at the village head's house. Hearing this, Wazzy quickly gets terrified, fearing he'll be caught for all the mess he's caused. He looks at Piggy and tells her they need to get out of there fast. But as soon as he sees her, his nose bursts with blood again from all the hotness in front of him. He quickly opens his system, grabs a robe, and covers himself with it, then gives Piggy some new clothes. Piggy sniffs the new clothes and starts smiling at the pleasant smell. One problem has been solved, but Wazzy still has to deal with the crowd outside. He starts exerting pressure to use a spore explosion. He puts in all his effort, but all that comes out is a little stinky fart, followed by dead silence in the area. Seeing this, Wazzy starts freaking out because his abilities aren't working anymore. He keeps shoving Piggy aside, telling her to stop fooling around. He exerts force once more, but all that comes out is a little fart. By now, he's pretty sure he's lost his ability to perform. Desperate, he calls out to the system for help. The system reassures him that his abilities haven't disappeared. It's just that the human body is different from a mushroom's, so he'll need to relearn how to use them. Since the system has been upgraded, the best way to get accustomed to his new body is by taking on new missions. He'll need to eliminate 10 level 20+ monsters to get back on track. Wazzy yells at the system again, saying there's more urgent stuff to deal with before jumping into missions. But the system insists he has to start from scratch and asks for his name, telling him to be patient. Wazzy sighs in frustration, knowing people are about to come inside and he's in big trouble. But the system just keeps repeating itself. It then spits out a random name, Duo Mo, and asks if he likes it. Wazzy rolls with it, hits yes, and tells the system to let him check out the inventory. Wazzy quickly starts rummaging through his inventory. He finds a bunch of food and random stuff he doesn't care about, but then he finally spots something useful, a recall scroll he failed to use before. He's pretty sure it can help them teleport back to the fountain. He hesitates for a moment though, because last time he tried to use it, it failed since monsters can't use it, and he's unsure if it'll work now. But with people about to burst in, he has no time to waste. He activates the recall scroll, and an enchantment circle appears beneath his feet. He clenches his jaw in anticipation. Just as people are about to enter, he spots the old man standing there. The broccoli old coot is completely shocked to see the place in shambles, and our duo appears to have already disappeared from the place before getting caught. The kids behind the old man are totally confused, unsure if even a thief could sneak in with their esteemed village head around. But this crazy old man, who was just sleeping with his waifu pillow last night, quickly throws down the wand and tells everyone that the commotion is due to fewer people for the ceremony. He says the energy from the divine tree was too dense and caused a bit of chaos, so there's nothing to worry about. He insists they follow him to the tree, claiming it's nothing serious and he knows what he's talking about from years of experience. But when he actually sees the tree, his confidence takes a nosedive. His eyes go wide and his jaw nearly hits the floor. The goddess has dried up and her boobs are sagging like deflated balloons. The kids behind him have the same shocked reaction, seeing their divine mother in such a state. The goddess now looks like a great-grandmother, no longer the pleasant woman she used to be. We're back with our duo, who've just been dropped into the bustling streets of town. Wazzy is amazed that the recall scroll finally saved them from getting kicked around. They notice another guy getting teleported in and bumping into him. Just then, a lady also appears out of nowhere and bumps into them. It seems like no one's paying them any attention, and Wazzy feels relieved that they're safe and sound, blending in unnoticed. Piggy starts stretching and checking out her new human limbs. She's fascinated by her new feet and the way her body works. But as she bends down into a doggy-style position, the mushroom sensor team arrives and immediately starts to censor all the important scenes. Wazzy realizes that even though he's turned into a human, he still can't use his abilities and has to get used to walking. He decides he needs to train himself before anything else. At least now, with his human appearance, he can wander the streets without a care in the world. Well, it turns out Wazzy was wrong about one thing. People are definitely paying attention to them. The onlookers are glued to the duo, having the time of their lives watching Piggy roll around on the ground, totally butt naked and showing off her bits. Wazzy's nose bursts with blood once again, and he quickly tries to get her to stand up, but she's stubborn and won't listen. Eventually, she stands up reluctantly, and Wazzy lets out a sigh of relief. They both happily start walking off. Their first stop is the tailor shop, where they spend 150 gold coins. Wazzy shoves Piggy behind the curtains and tells her to get dressed. Next, they head to the smith shop and spend another 200 gold coins on a giant axe. With these purchases, Wazzy is now utterly broke, with just enough spare change for a few more days of lodging and food. He realizes he needs to find a way to earn some hard cash. The Piggy then point her finger to that snack shop and meekly asks for some food to eat, and Wazzy, with no other choice, spent some of his money for that tasty snacks. Once the night settles down, we find our duo in one of the rooms of the hotel while the lady sleeps soundly over her bed. My guy is buzzing, examining himself, poking around over his body to feel this humanism form once again. Wazzy reflects on how he no longer resembles his former self, but he's at least happy to be human. He was tired of his giant mushroom ass and those awkward little legs. He then looks into his inventory and finds a divine tree branch. He's confused and wonders if it's because he absorbed the divine tree. Checking the stats, he reads that it's a branch from the divine tree he obtained after decomposing it. He's pretty disappointed that this tiny wooden stick only adds 1 point to attack and needs magic to charge. He shrugs it off as useless and looks at his profile. His stats look solid, like he's been upgraded 30 times over. But he wonders if the system is glitching, so he tries to refresh his profile once more, but the numbers are the same. He frantically keeps refreshing the stats window, getting more and more baffled because the numbers are real, but he doesn't feel any stronger. Wazzy tries to use his appraisal skill on Piggy to see how much she's beefed up, but it doesn't work. He gets annoyed and asks the system if it can at least give him his abilities back or explain why he can't use them. The system just repeats its usual bullcrap, saying human and monster bodies are totally different, and abilities work differently too. He needs to feel the magic inside his body to start with the basics. Wazzy realizes that his usual force exertion won't cut it. The system agrees, pointing out that while humans aren't as sensitive to magic as monsters, they have better control over it. It suggests that Wazzy close his eyes and focus on feeling the magic power flowing through him. He follows the advice, closes his eyes, and tries to feel the magic coursing through him. After a moment, he uses his appraisal skill, and Piggy's stats quickly appear. Wazzy is blown away to see how much she's leveled up and how strong they've suddenly become. But then he feels a sharp headache and his body starts to quake. The system warns him that while humans have finer control over magic, they need to consciously manage their abilities. Otherwise, overdrafting mana could lead to serious consequences. Seeing his MP drop fast, Wazzy asks what kind of consequences he's talking about. The system tells him he'll face absolute death. As night falls and Wazzy tries to figure out his new human form, we see a drunken thug stumbling through the dark roads outside the village. He's annoyed that so many high-level braves are showing up in the starter village. The thug's foot accidentally lands in some fresh crap on the ground, and he's fuming about who the hell left a mess in the alley, and he's ready to skin the culprit alive for crapping here. But then, he spots a snail scuttling around, and this little fella does not look like your average snail. The punk decides to kick the little guy with his big leg. Just as he does, the snail opens its mouth, which suddenly explodes into a gooey mess. The thug's leg gets trapped in the snail's gooey maw, its tiny teeth digging into his skin. He falls to the ground, writhing in pain and begging for help, but no one's around to hear his cries. The snail monster keeps on consuming him, starting with his leg and working its way up to his face. All that's left are crunching sounds, and the thug's head has been severed. No one seems to notice the murder, and the gooey mess from the scene starts making its way toward the building where our duo is resting. The goo flows through the closed door, crawls up the stairs, and a filthy snail follows the traces of the divine tree's power. Since Wazzy devoured all that power, the snail is heading straight for him. The snail slips under the door, and once inside, we find Wazzy and Piggy sleeping soundly on the ground. The snail, emitting a black, ominous aura, perks up upon finding Wazzy. It turns out that this is the same old man Broccoli, who's now furious with Wazzy for stealing all the power and wasting many years of effort. The next day dawns, and sunlight streams into the duo's room, making everything look bright and new. The snail, still lurking in the shadows, tries to move forward but is quickly burned by the sunlight. It retreats, clearly frustrated. It seems like this old man is after the golem's power, which explains why he was so fixated on that wand-like object. The snail doesn't advance any further, and, after realizing it can't get to the duo, retreats with a vow to return. Meanwhile, Wazzy is deep in a dream involving Piggy. In his dream, Piggy suddenly starts unzipping her skin, and out pops the creepy old Broccoli man. Wazzy is horrified and frantically looks around, relieved to wake up and realize it was just a nightmare. Nonetheless, he stretches his arms and stands up, ready to tackle some missions. Later, the steam train chugs along the tracks, and Wazzy is already racking up experience points with every task he completes. When they arrive at Granite Mountains, Piggy is happily munching on apples as usual. They're heading out for their final starter mission, and while Wazzy feels that the small amount of experience he's gaining isn't very impactful, he's grateful for the missions as they're helping him understand human society better. His first task was to take down level 20 monsters. He then accepted 3 bounties at the guild, and now they're in Granite Mountains for the first bounty, to destroy the deadwood monsters that have been flooding the area. Wazzy checks the stats for these possessed stump monsters, and figures he can handle them since he's fought them before. But as he keeps walking, he can't find any monsters. He starts feeling pretty defeated, realizing that bounties are a lot different from the system's missions, and he's not sure what to do. Suddenly, a monster crawls up from behind, and the system pings with an enemy-detected alert. They spin around and spot these giant tree trunks. Piggy, clearly tense, clutches her apples tightly, while Wazzy tells her to get ready for a fight. He quickly uses his appraisal skill and finds out the monster is level 35. He is pretty confused to see that this stump monster is way tougher than any he's faced before. The system reminds Wazzy that this world has its own ecosystem, and naturally, monsters in different habitats adapt and evolve different forms. Wazzy grabs his giant sword, feeling confident he can handle the big ones. He tells Piggy to take care of the smaller monsters while he deals with the bigger ones. Before diving into the fight, Piggy makes sure to stash her delicious apples away from the chaos, while those stump monsters just look at her cluelessly. They start laughing at her, clearly feeling amused to see her acting like a moron. Piggy grabs her giant axe and swings with all her might, slicing through the monsters with a single powerful blow. The impact splatters them into pieces, and she stands there, triumphant, as if she's on top of the world after shredding those creatures. Feeling hungry after the battle, Piggy starts looking for something to eat. Meanwhile, Wazzy is totally creeped out by her insane strength. It's on a whole other level. Just then, one of the remaining stumps tries to attack Wazzy from behind. He immediately activates Sage Mode, his reflexes kicking into high gear, and dodges the attack effortlessly. Wazzy then starts leaping around with his mushroom bash, using his human form to power up his leg strength. With a mighty swing, he cuts down the monsters with his mushroom sword dance, and the experience points quickly start racking up. As more monsters swarm the area, Wazzy casually sheaths his sword back, tired of the brawl. He extends his hand, fire dancing around his palm, and with a powerful push, unleashes a spore explosion. The spores quickly spread, causing mushrooms to sprout on the monsters' bodies, and their HP starts dwindling fast. Within seconds, all the monsters collapse to the ground. Afterward, Wazzy brushes off his hands and checks in with Piggy, who seems to be done with her share of monsters. She's looking pretty exhausted, so Wazzy decides to throw a food party to celebrate their victory. Just as they're about to enjoy their well-earned feast, the system flashes a danger warning. The scene shifts to show a massive monster looming right behind the Piggy. Wazzy shouts for Piggy to look behind her. They both see that the monsters on the ground are reviving and merging into one huge beast. And the Elder Tree spirit has finally awoken inside the giant tree, which is also holding all the delicious fruit. The giant monster lets out a roar so loud it almost bursts their eardrums. The system flashes a warning that they're up against a giant possessed stump that's evolved after absorbing its fallen buddies. Piggy, furious about losing her apples, rushes at the monster. Even though Wazzy begs her to stop, she swings her giant axe with all her strength. But the axe shatters on impact, and the monster grabs her by the feet. As the giant tree tries to drag Piggy away, Wazzy leaps in to save her, but his sword also shatters, and his legs start to tremble. Piggy falls to the ground, but she is delighted to see that he's right there to help her, and she wraps him in a grateful hug. Just as they're catching their breath, the system reminds them that the danger isn't over. They look around and see that the apples hanging above the tree have started to wither down. The tree has finally transformed into this giant wooden monster. Piggy's face turns red with rage as she sees the once delicious apples turning to mush. In a burst of fury, she charges at the monster, ignoring all the warnings our boy has been throwing her way. She ignores everything, jumps from the ground, and soars through the air. The monster throws a punch that collides with Piggy's, and the impact sends shockwaves through the air, and the poor girl crashes into the tree behind her, writhing in pain. Wazzy realizes they're in serious trouble. Their weapons are shattered, and nothing seems to be working against this beast. Desperate, he remembers his last trump card and unleashes a massive spore explosion. The giant ball of spores slams into the monster's head, and mushrooms quickly begin to grow over its body. But the monster isn't done yet. It sheds its bark and charges at Wazzy and Piggy. With no other options, Wazzy scrambles through his inventory and pulls out the seemingly useless divine tree branch. He quickly grips the branch and uses it as a weapon. He channels his power through it and unleashes a powerful mushroom sword dance. As he lands back to ground after his attack, he's hit with a wave of panic. The monster looks completely unfazed. Its body starts crackling, and suddenly 2 massive hands sprout from its back. With a crushing swing, it smashes down on Wazzy, sending him sprawling and making blood trickle from his mouth. The impact wrecks the ground beneath them, and his HP takes a nosedive, dropping by 800 points. Seeing her friend in such bad shape, Piggy immediately charges at the monster. Wazzy shouts at her to stop, but she's already in the air, her resolve clear. With her Piggy Punch activated and that pink, bubbly energy surrounding her hand, she smashes down, obliterating the monster's root hands and cracking its body. A massive explosion follows, sending shockwaves that leave Wazzy stunned. When the dust settles, Wazzy's jaw practically hits the floor to see Piggy standing there, leaving him wondering since when she became so badass. She appears to be completely wiped out after that mighty punch, and begins to fall. Wazzy catches her, and his nose starts bleeding from her soft assets pressing against his face. He gently sets her down, but before he can fully react, there's a small explosion, and the girl turns back into her pig form. The poor girl is practically in tears after losing her precious fruits vanish like magic. Her heart is shattered, and you can almost hear it breaking into 1,000 tiny pieces.